The afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows of Lincoln Elementary School, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum floors. Emma Hart, a third-grade teacher with an unyielding sense of purpose, finished writing "Kindness Week" on the whiteboard in looping letters. Her students, a lively mix of 8- and 9-year-olds, fidgeted with crayons, waiting for their next assignment. Amid the din, Emma's sharp eyes caught sight of Lily Bennett sitting quietly in the corner. The girl hunched over her desk, her thin fingers clutched around a pencil that had been sharpened nearly to its end. Her clothes, though clean, were threadbare, her backpack sagging at the seams. Unlike the other children, Lily rarely spoke, but her solemn brown eyes conveyed a depth Emma found unsettling for a child so young. "Lily," Emma called gently, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Could you come here for a moment?" The room stilled as the other children's attention shifted toward Lily. She hesitated, the hesitation of someone accustomed to ridicule. Slowly, she rose and walked to the front, her shoes scuffed and 2 sizes too big, making faint squeaks on the polished floor. Emma knelt to meet her gaze, her warm blue eyes scanning Lily's face. "I noticed you've been very quiet today. Is everything okay?" Lily nodded quickly, but her silence spoke volumes. After class, as the other students raced to grab their coats and chatter about their plans, Emma lingered. She watched as Lily packed her belongings with meticulous care, as though afraid of damaging what little she had. The girl's caution struck Emma deeply. "Lily," Emma called again as the girl reached the door. "Wait a moment." Lily turned, her small frame seeming even smaller beneath the weight of her oversized coat. Emma gestured for her to come closer. "You're doing a wonderful job with your reading. Have you been practicing at home?" "Yes, ma'am," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Emma studied her. "If you ever need anything, even just to talk, my door is always open, okay?" Lily nodded, her eyes glimmering with something Emma couldn't quite place. Gratitude, perhaps, or hope. Later that evening, Emma sat at her desk with a cup of lukewarm tea, poring over her students' files. Lily's record was sparse. It listed her as living with a guardian, no further details provided, and noted that she received free lunch assistance. No emergency contacts, no family photos, just a name scrawled in impersonal black ink. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Principal Wilkins, a stoic man in his 50s, entered. "Burning the midnight oil again, Emma?" She managed a tired smile. "Just catching up." He glanced at the open folder on her desk. "Lily Bennett, right? She's a tough one. Quiet, but a good kid." "Why the sudden interest?" "She seems..." Emma hesitated, searching for the right word. "Fragile. Like there's more going on at home than we know." Wilkins sighed. "Kids like Lily slip through the cracks all the time. It's a shame, but there's only so much we can do." The words lingered in Emma's mind long after Wilkins left. The next day, during recess, Emma noticed a group of students clustered near the monkey bars. Their laughter carried an undertone that made her stomach knot. Pushing through the crowd, she found Lily at the center, clutching her tattered backpack, while another child, a boy named Chase, dangled it just out of her reach. "Give it back!" Lily's voice trembled, but she didn't cry. "Hey!" Emma's sharp tone cut through the jeers. The children scattered like leaves in the wind, Chase dropping the backpack in his haste to flee. Emma knelt beside Lily, her heart breaking at the sight of the girl's trembling hands. "Are you hurt?" Emma asked softly. Lily shook her head, though her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Emma stood and addressed the remaining children. "Bullying is unacceptable in this classroom, in this school, and in life. If I see it again, there will be consequences. Understood?" The children nodded solemnly before dispersing. Turning back to Lily, Emma placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Let's go inside." Later that afternoon, as the last bell rang, Emma watched from her classroom window as parents arrived to collect their children. Most drove modest cars. A few walked. Emma's eyes landed on a sleek black car pulling up to the curb, a luxury model that stood out sharply against the backdrop of the middle-class neighborhood. Lily emerged from the school building, clutching her backpack tightly. To Emma's astonishment, the car's door opened to reveal a man stepping out. He was tall and sharply dressed in a tailored suit, his features chiseled and his demeanor exuding authority. "Lily!" the man called in a deep, commanding voice. He opened the passenger door for her, his movements precise and deliberate. Lily climbed into the car without a word. Emma watched, her curiosity burning. Who was this man, and why did he seem so out of place in Lily's modest world? The questions gnawed at her as the car disappeared down the street, leaving more questions than answers. The image of Lily's guarded expression as she entered the car stayed with Emma long after the school grounds emptied, sparking a determination to uncover the truth behind the quiet girl's life. The next morning, the weather mirrored Emma Hart's mood, overcast and heavy with unspoken tension. The usual bustle of Lincoln Elementary's hallway felt subdued, and Emma's thoughts returned repeatedly to Lily Bennett. The image of the sharp-dressed man from the previous evening lingered in her mind, accompanied by more questions than answers. Who was he, and what kind of life did Lily go home to? As her students filed into the classroom, Emma noticed Lily slip quietly to her desk, her eyes focused on the floor. The girl's usual reserve seemed heightened, as if she were retreating further into herself. Emma resolved to observe her more closely throughout the day. Searching for any cracks in the stoic facade, Lily seemed determined to maintain. The class began with reading hour, and Emma assigned small groups to discuss their books. Lily worked alone as usual, her head bent over a battered copy of Charlotte's Web. Despite the vibrant chatter filling the room, Emma couldn't help but notice how Lily's posture remained tense, her small shoulders drawn inward like a turtle retreating into its shell. Occasionally, she'd glance at the door, as though expecting someone to burst in unannounced. During recess, Emma used the time to dig deeper into Lily's background. The school's administrative records revealed scant details. No information about her parents, no photographs, and no listed relatives beyond a James Westwood, named as her guardian. The name felt vaguely familiar, but Emma couldn't place it. Curiosity gnawed at her. Emma called Principal Wilkins to inquire further, but his response was dismissive. "Some guardians prefer privacy," he said, his tone curt. "We've verified the paperwork. She's under his care, and that's all that matters." "But don't you think it's odd?" Emma pressed. "Lily seems so withdrawn, and she doesn't interact with the other kids. I can't help but wonder if there's more going on." Wilkins sighed audibly through the phone. "Emma, I know you care deeply about your students, but you can't solve everyone's problems. Just focus on the classroom, okay?" Emma set the phone down, frustrated but no closer to understanding Lily's situation. Her instinct told her that something was amiss, and Emma had learned over the years to trust her instincts. Later that day, as the children practiced their spelling words, Emma noticed Lily struggling with her pencil, its eraser worn down to a nub. Emma crossed the room and crouched beside her desk. "Do you need a new pencil?" Emma asked softly. Lily froze for a moment before nodding, her eyes darting nervously toward the other students as though fearing their judgment. Emma retrieved a fresh pencil from her desk and handed it to Lily, offering her an encouraging smile. "Thank you," Lily whispered, barely audible. "You're welcome," Emma replied. "Remember, you can always ask for help when you need it." Emma returned to her own desk, but she couldn't ignore the flicker of relief she'd seen in Lily's expression. It was as though the simple act of kindness had chipped away at the wall the girl had built around herself. As the school day wound down, Emma watched the students gather their belongings. Lily was the last to leave, as usual, her pace deliberate and her gaze lowered. Emma wanted to ask her more about her life at home, but she knew she needed to tread carefully. Pushing too hard might cause Lily to withdraw further. As Lily approached the door, Emma called out, "Lily, wait a second." The girl paused, clutching her tattered backpack. "Do you have a favorite subject?" Emma asked, keeping her tone light. Lily hesitated, then murmured, "Reading." "That's wonderful," Emma said warmly. "You're a great reader. I can tell you've been practicing a lot." Lily gave a faint smile, the first Emma had seen all day. It wasn't much, but it felt like a breakthrough. At the end of the day, Emma stood at the window again, watching parents arrive to pick up their children. She scanned the crowd for Lily and wasn't surprised to see the same sleek black car pull up. The man from the day before, James Westwood, Emma presumed, stepped out, his imposing figure unmistakable. Dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit, he exuded an air of authority that made him seem out of place among the modest families waiting nearby. Lily climbed into the car without hesitation, and Emma caught a glimpse of her expression, tense and unreadable. James Westwood said something to her as she settled into the passenger seat, but his tone was brisk, not warm. The car pulled away smoothly, leaving Emma with a gnawing sense of unease. Determined to learn more, Emma spent the evening researching James Westwood. A quick internet search revealed his identity, a wealthy businessman known for his philanthropy and private lifestyle. There were numerous articles about his business ventures, but nothing that shed light on his connection to Lily. Emma closed her laptop, her thoughts swirling. James Westwood's affluence seemed to contradict Lily's modest appearance and withdrawn demeanor. What was their relationship, and why did it feel so fraught with tension? As Emma lay in bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that Lily's quiet suffering was a puzzle she was meant to solve. Whatever secrets surrounded the girl and her mysterious guardian, Emma resolved to uncover the truth, even if it meant stepping outside her usual boundaries as a teacher. The sun shone brightly on the playground, a deceptive contrast to the tension brewing under the surface. Children's laughter echoed as they swung on monkey bars and darted across the blacktop, but Emma Hart's focus was elsewhere. She watched Lily Bennett from a distance, her small figure perched on the edge of the playground bench, clutching a well-worn book against her chest. The girl sat apart, her body language withdrawn, as though willing herself to be invisible. Emma sensed that something significant was about to unfold, a feeling that had been building since the previous evening. The mystery of James Westwood's connection to Lily occupied her thoughts, filling the quiet moments with questions she couldn't yet answer. Still, it was Lily's quiet struggle that weighed most heavily on her heart. As Emma turned her attention to the rowdier group of children playing near the swings, a commotion erupted by the fence. She spotted Lily surrounded by 3 older boys, their sneers unmistakable even from a distance. They were jeering, their voices sharp and taunting. With swift determination, Emma strode across the playground. Her approach was deliberate, her heels clicking against the concrete, each step amplifying the tension. "What's going on here?" Emma's voice carried authority, halting the boys mid-laughter. She scanned their faces, her piercing gaze leaving no room for excuses. "It's nothing, Miss Hart," said one boy, Chase, avoiding her eyes. "We were just playing." Emma's eyes narrowed. "This doesn't look like playing. Lily, are you all right?" The girl nodded stiffly, her hands gripping the book tighter, but the quiver in her chin betrayed her. "Chase, you and your friends, step aside," Emma ordered. The boys shuffled away reluctantly, glancing back at Lily with lingering disdain. Emma knelt beside the girl, her voice softening. "Lily, it's okay now. You're safe. Did they hurt you?" Lily shook her head, but her eyes welled with unshed tears. Emma could see the toll it had taken, the silent endurance that no child should have to bear. "Let's go inside," Emma suggested, offering her hand. Lily hesitated, then placed her small, trembling hand in Emma's, allowing herself to be led away from the prying eyes of the playground. Back in the classroom, Emma pulled out 2 chairs and sat across from Lily, who clutched her book as though it were a shield. "Lily," Emma began gently, "you don't have to tell me everything, but I want you to know that you're not alone. Whatever's happening, I'm here for you." The girl looked down, her fingers tracing the edge of the book's fraying cover. For a moment, Emma thought Lily might speak, but the words seemed trapped in her throat. "It's okay," Emma assured her. "You can take your time." After a long silence, Lily whispered, "They said I don't belong here." Emma felt a pang in her chest. "That's not true," she said firmly. "You belong just as much as anyone else. Don't let anyone make you think otherwise." Lily nodded slightly, though her expression remained guarded. Emma decided not to push further, sensing that Lily needed time to feel safe enough to open up. Later that afternoon, as the final bell rang and the classroom emptied, Emma returned to her desk, her mind churning with plans to address the bullying. She couldn't let the behavior go unchecked, not when it was clear how deeply it affected Lily. Her musings were interrupted by a knock at the door. Looking up, she saw a man standing in the doorway, James Westwood. His presence was as commanding as ever, his tailored suit immaculate and his expression unreadable. "Miss Hart?" His voice was deep, carrying a quiet intensity. "May I have a word?" Emma stood, her heart racing. "Of course, Mr. Westwood. Please, come in." He entered with deliberate steps, his posture erect and his gaze steady. As he took a seat across from Emma's desk, she noticed a faint flicker of something behind his composed exterior. Tension, perhaps, or impatience. "I understand you've taken a particular interest in Lily," he began, his tone measured. Emma nodded cautiously. "She's a bright and sensitive child. I've noticed she's been having a tough time lately." Westwood's jaw tightened. "I appreciate your concern, but I assure you, Lily's well-being is my priority. She's under my care, and I'm doing everything I can to provide for her." "I don't doubt that," Emma replied carefully, choosing her words with precision. "But I've seen signs that suggest she's struggling. She's withdrawn, and today she was the target of bullying." Westwood's eyes darkened, his expression hardening. "Bullying?" His voice carried a sharp edge. "Yes," Emma said. "I intervened, but it's clear this isn't an isolated incident. I believe Lily needs more support than she's letting on." Westwood leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the floor for a moment before meeting Emma's eyes again. "I'll handle it," he said, his tone final. Emma hesitated, sensing that pressing further might only push him away. Still, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that there was more to the story, something neither Lily nor Westwood was willing to share. As Westwood stood to leave, Emma made one last effort. "If Lily ever needs someone to talk to, please know that my door is always open." He nodded curtly, his demeanor unreadable, before walking out. Emma watched him go, the door closing softly behind him. She sat back in her chair, her thoughts racing. Whatever secrets James Westwood carried, Emma was certain they were tied to Lily's quiet pain, and she was determined to uncover the truth. The following morning, Emma Hart arrived early at Lincoln Elementary, her mind heavy with thoughts of Lily Bennett and her enigmatic guardian, James Westwood. She set her bag down in the quiet classroom and began preparing for the day, but her focus was elsewhere. The encounter with Westwood had left her unsettled. His curt demeanor and insistence on handling things alone had only deepened her concerns. As the students trickled in, their chatter filled the room, but Emma's sharp eyes sought Lily. When the girl appeared at the doorway, her head was bowed and her steps hesitant. She looked smaller than usual, as though the weight of something invisible pressed heavily on her. "Good morning, Lily," Emma greeted warmly, masking her worry. Lily offered a fleeting nod and slipped into her seat, her presence barely registering among the lively energy of her classmates. The morning progressed as planned, but Emma noticed Lily's distractions, her wandering gaze, the slow, deliberate way she turned pages in her workbook. Emma decided to wait for the right moment to approach her, knowing the girl needed to feel safe before opening up. At lunch, Emma watched from a distance as Lily sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria, nibbling at her sandwich. Other children passed by, some glancing at her, but none stopping to sit with her. Emma's heart ached at the sight, but she resisted the urge to intervene directly. Lily's isolation was a delicate issue, one that required patience and care. Midway through the day, during art class, Emma encouraged her students to draw something that made them feel happy. The room buzzed with excitement as children grabbed crayons and markers, their imaginations spilling onto paper. Emma made her rounds, pausing at each desk to admire their creations: a sunny park, a family picnic, a favorite pet. When she reached Lily's desk, the girl was hunched over her paper, her pencil moving in careful strokes. Emma knelt beside her, curious. "That looks lovely, Lily," Emma said softly. "What are you drawing?" Lily hesitated, then tilted the paper just enough for Emma to see. The drawing depicted a small house, modest but cozy, with a garden blooming in front of it. In the corner, a tiny figure stood alone, facing the house. "It's beautiful," Emma remarked, her voice gentle. "Is this your home?" Lily shook her head. "It's where I want to live," she murmured. Emma felt a lump rise in her throat but kept her tone steady. "It looks like a peaceful place. I'm sure you'll get there one day." Lily glanced at Emma, her expression fleetingly hopeful, before returning to her drawing. Emma moved on, but the image stayed with her, an unspoken longing etched in pencil lines. As the day ended and the students prepared to leave, Emma noticed a small group of boys lingering near Lily's desk. Chase, the ringleader from before, leaned in close, his voice low but unmistakably taunting. "Bet you don't even have a real home," he sneered. "That's why you're always so quiet." Lily's hands clenched around her backpack straps, her knuckles white. Emma crossed the room in an instant, her voice firm. "Chase, that's enough." The boy straightened, startled. "We were just talking, Miss Hart." "Talking doesn't involve making someone feel unwelcome," Emma said sharply. "Apologize to Lily." Chase muttered a half-hearted apology, his face flushing, before slinking away with his friends. Lily remained frozen, her gaze fixed on the floor. "Are you all right?" Emma asked, her voice softening. Lily nodded stiffly. Though her body betrayed the tension she carried, Emma placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're very brave, Lily. Remember that," she said quietly. As the last bell rang, Emma walked Lily to the door, watching as the sleek black car arrived once more. James Westwood stepped out, his presence commanding as always. Lily climbed in without a word, and Emma observed the brief exchange between them, a clipped question from him, a nod from her. The car pulled away, leaving Emma with a gnawing sense of unease. That evening, Emma sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open to yet another search on James Westwood. The details were sparse, an accomplished businessman with philanthropic endeavors, yet notoriously private about his personal life. There were no mentions of children or family, nothing to explain his guardianship of Lily. Emma leaned back in her chair, frustration mounting. Every step closer to understanding Lily's life seemed to raise more questions. What was Westwood hiding? And why did Lily seem so alone, despite the apparent wealth and resources at her disposal? Her thoughts were interrupted by a notification on her phone, a reminder for the upcoming parent-teacher conference. It struck Emma as the perfect opportunity to dig deeper. If Westwood attended, she might finally get answers to the questions that had been haunting her. As Emma prepared for bed, her resolve hardened. She didn't know what lay behind Lily's guarded silence or Westwood's stern exterior, but she was determined to find out. For Lily's sake, Emma couldn't ignore the growing sense that something was deeply wrong. The parent-teacher conference had arrived, and Emma Hart spent the afternoon meticulously arranging her classroom. Rows of student work were displayed on the walls, and small chairs had been set up in pairs for the conversations ahead. While most parents would chat casually about grades and upcoming assignments, Emma had only one meeting that truly occupied her mind: James Westwood. As the clock ticked closer to the start time, parents began filing in. The room hummed with polite conversation, the occasional laughter punctuating the steady murmur. Emma greeted each visitor with warmth, but her eyes frequently darted to the door, anticipating Westwood's arrival. Finally, an imposing figure appeared in the doorway. James Westwood, dressed sharply as always, surveyed the room with a guarded expression. His presence immediately drew attention. Parents glanced at him with quiet curiosity, whispering among themselves. "Mr. Westwood," Emma greeted, stepping forward to shake his hand. "Thank you for coming." He inclined his head slightly. "Miss Hart." Emma gestured toward a table at the far end of the room, away from the other parents. "Shall we sit?" Westwood followed, his polished shoes clicking against the floor. Once seated, Emma wasted no time, knowing she had a narrow window to broach the subject that had weighed on her for weeks. "Lily is an exceptionally bright student," Emma began. "She excels in reading and shows a strong imagination. But I'm concerned about her social interactions. She often isolates herself, and there have been instances of bullying." Westwood's jaw tightened, his posture stiffening. "I see. I understand she may be shy, but these behaviors suggest there's more at play," Emma pressed gently. "I want to ensure she feels supported, both here and at home." For a moment, Westwood said nothing. His eyes, cold and calculating, seemed to scan Emma's face as though weighing her motives. When he finally spoke, his tone was clipped. "Lily has faced challenges, yes. But I've ensured she has everything she needs." Emma leaned forward slightly, her voice softening. "Material needs are important, but children also require emotional support. Lily's drawing the other day, it was a house, a place she wishes to live. It made me wonder if she feels secure in her current environment." Westwood's expression hardened, but there was a flicker of something else, perhaps guilt or frustration. "Lily is under my care, Miss Hart. Whatever difficulties she's facing, I will address them." Emma held his gaze, undeterred. "I don't doubt your intentions, Mr. Westwood, but children don't always express their struggles openly. They rely on the adults around them to notice the signs." He straightened, his tone turning defensive. "You're overstepping, Miss Hart. I appreciate your concern, but Lily's personal life is not your jurisdiction." The sharpness in his voice stung, but Emma refused to back down. "My only priority is Lily's well-being. If I see signs that she's unhappy or struggling, it's my duty to raise those concerns." For a long moment, the air between them was taut with tension. Finally, Westwood exhaled, his rigid demeanor softening just enough to suggest a crack in his armor. "I admire your dedication," he said, his voice quieter now. "But some wounds take time to heal. Lily has been through more than you realize." Emma's heart sank at his words, but she pressed no further. It was clear that Westwood carried his own burdens, ones he wasn't ready to share. As the evening wore on, the conference came to an end. The other parents trickled out, exchanging polite farewells, leaving Emma alone to tidy the room. She replayed her conversation with Westwood, turning over every word in her mind. His defensiveness, the vague hint of something deeper. What was he hiding? And how did it connect to Lily's quiet pain? Just as Emma began stacking chairs, she heard a voice behind her. "Miss Hart!" She turned to see Westwood standing in the doorway again, his expression unreadable. "I wanted to thank you," he said, his tone softer than before. "For looking out for Lily," Emma nodded, surprised by the shift. "She's a remarkable child. I only want what's best for her." Westwood hesitated, as though grappling with something unspoken. Then he said, almost reluctantly, "Lily's mother was my sister." The admission hung in the air, heavy with implication. Emma's breath caught, but she remained silent, allowing him to continue. "She passed away last year," he said, his voice tight. "Lily's been in my care since then. It's been an adjustment." Emma's heart ached at the revelation. The pieces began falling into place. Lily's withdrawn demeanor, her longing for a home, Westwood's guarded behavior. She could see now that both of them were navigating a sea of grief. "I'm sorry for your loss," Emma said softly. "That must be incredibly difficult for both of you." Westwood nodded, but offered no further details. Instead, he straightened, his guarded expression returning. "Good night, Miss Hart." "Good night," Emma replied, watching as he disappeared into the hallway. As she turned off the classroom lights, Emma felt the weight of what she had learned. The road ahead for Lily and her uncle was fraught with challenges, but Emma resolved to remain a steady presence in their lives. For now, the mystery had deepened, but so had her determination to help them find a path forward. The next morning, Emma Hart awoke with a sense of resolve. The pieces of Lily Bennett's life were beginning to come together, but they only raised more questions. James Westwood's revelation about being Lily's uncle had provided context, yet it felt like only the tip of an iceberg. What had happened to Lily's mother, and why did the child seem so weighed down by sadness? Emma couldn't let her concerns rest, not when Lily's withdrawn demeanor suggested a deeper struggle. At school, Emma noticed subtle changes in Lily. She was quieter than usual, her head bowed as she worked through her assignments. While the other children laughed and shared stories about their weekends, Lily stayed at her desk, her small shoulders hunched. During morning reading time, Emma approached Lily's desk. "Good morning, Lily," she said softly. "How are you feeling today?" Lily hesitated, her pencil still. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her tone was unconvincing. Emma crouched to meet her eyes. "Remember, if you ever need to talk, I'm here. Anything you say stays between us." For a fleeting moment, Lily's gaze met Emma's. There was a flicker of something, trust perhaps, but it vanished quickly. She nodded and returned her attention to her book. That afternoon, Emma visited the school counselor, Mrs. Diane Carlson, hoping for insight. Diane, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an air of quiet authority, listened carefully as Emma described her concerns. "I've noticed Lily's withdrawn behavior for some time," Diane admitted, "but her academic performance is strong and she hasn't asked for help." "Sometimes children don't know how to ask," Emma replied. "And after speaking with her uncle, I'm more convinced there's something she's not saying." Diane folded her hands on her desk. "What did he share?" "He told me Lily's mother, his sister, passed away last year. He didn't go into detail, but it's clear they're both struggling with the aftermath." Diane nodded thoughtfully. "Grief can manifest in many ways. For children, it often looks like withdrawal or difficulty forming connections. It's possible Lily's trying to process her loss while adjusting to a new environment." Emma felt a pang of guilt. She'd been so focused on uncovering the mystery of Lily's life that she hadn't fully considered the emotional weight of the child's loss. "What can we do to help her?" Emma asked. "We need to create a safe space where she feels comfortable expressing herself," Diane suggested. "You've already built trust with her, which is a great start, but we also need to approach her uncle carefully. If he's struggling, he might not realize how much Lily is too." As the school day ended, Emma lingered in her classroom, waiting for the children to leave. She watched as Lily packed her backpack with meticulous care, her movements slow and deliberate. The girl seemed almost reluctant to leave, as though the school offered her a refuge she didn't have elsewhere. "Lily," Emma called gently. "Could I talk to you for a moment?" Lily approached hesitantly, clutching her bag to her chest. Emma gestured for her to sit. "I wanted to ask you about something. How do you feel about school? Do you enjoy being here?" Lily shrugged, her gaze fixed on her lap. "It's okay." Emma leaned forward, keeping her tone light. "Is there anything that would make it better? Maybe more art time or a different book to read?" Lily shook her head. "No, it's fine." Emma studied her carefully. The girl's guarded responses reminded her of a fragile vase, one crack away from shattering. "I want you to know it's okay to share how you're feeling, even if it's hard." Lily glanced at Emma, her expression conflicted. "Why do you care so much?" The question caught Emma off guard, but she answered honestly, "Because you're important, Lily. And I want to make sure you're happy and safe." Lily's lips parted as though she might say more, but then the familiar black car pulled up outside. Her shoulders stiffened and she grabbed her bag. "I have to go," she said quickly, hurrying toward the door. Emma followed, watching as James Westwood stepped out of the car. His usual polished demeanor was intact, but there was a tension in his posture as he held the car door open for Lily. The child climbed in without a word, her face carefully blank. Westwood's gaze flicked to Emma, and their eyes met. He offered a brief nod before getting into the car and driving away. That evening, Emma sat at her kitchen table, the faint hum of the kettle breaking the silence. Her conversation with Lily replayed in her mind, the girl's question haunting her. "Why do you care so much?" It was a simple inquiry, yet it revealed so much. Lily was unaccustomed to adults investing in her well-being, a truth that broke Emma's heart. Determined to help, Emma began drafting a letter to James Westwood. She kept her tone professional but firm, emphasizing the importance of addressing Lily's emotional needs. While she doubted he'd welcome the intervention, she couldn't let her concerns go unanswered. As she sealed the envelope, Emma resolved to deliver it personally the next day. Whatever barriers James Westwood had built around himself and Lily, Emma was determined to find a way through them. For Lily's sake, she wouldn't stop until she understood what lay behind the child's quiet pain. The following day dawned grey and chilly, with a light drizzle misting the windows of Lincoln Elementary. Emma Hart arrived early, clutching the letter she had written to James Westwood. The words on the page represented her growing resolve to address Lily's well-being directly. Yet, as she sat at her desk and reread the letter, doubts crept in. Would he dismiss her concerns as meddling, or worse, overstep his guarded walls entirely? By mid-morning, Emma decided to put the letter aside for now. Instead, she resolved to focus on Lily. Actions spoke louder than words, and Emma knew that building trust with the girl could uncover the underlying struggles that neither Lily nor her uncle seemed willing to share. During the lunch break, Emma found Lily sitting under a tree near the edge of the playground, her knees drawn to her chest as she stared blankly at the ground. The other children ran and played in the drizzle, their laughter a stark contrast to Lily's solitude. Emma approached, her steps careful, as if approaching a wounded bird. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her tone light. Lily glanced up briefly and shrugged. Taking that as an invitation, Emma sat on the damp grass beside her. The cool air nipped at her skin, but she ignored it. "It's nice to take a break sometimes," Emma said casually. "This spot is quiet, peaceful." Lily nodded faintly but didn't speak. Emma glanced at her. "Do you like the rain?" "I always thought it made everything feel fresh, like the world was getting a clean start." Lily hesitated before replying. "It's okay, I guess, but it makes everything cold." The comment struck Emma as layered, far beyond the literal chill of the weather. "Cold isn't always bad," she said softly. "Sometimes it makes you appreciate warmth even more." For the first time, Lily looked directly at Emma. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, a hint that the girl understood the deeper meaning in her words. "I guess," Lily murmured, her voice barely audible. They sat in companionable silence for a while, the patter of rain on leaves filling the space between them. Emma sensed that this quiet moment was more meaningful than any words they could exchange. Later that afternoon, during a science lesson, Emma noticed Lily glancing repeatedly at the clock. The girl's usual focus seemed scattered, and her hands fidgeted with the edge of her desk. "Lily," Emma said gently as the students began packing up for the day, "can I talk to you before you leave?" Lily hesitated, her small frame tensing slightly, but she nodded and stayed behind as the other children filed out. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, crouching to meet her eye level. "You seemed distracted today." Lily shrugged, her gaze fixed on her hands. "It's nothing." Emma waited, giving her space to continue if she chose. When Lily didn't, Emma spoke softly. "Sometimes when we're worried about something, it helps to talk about it, even if it's just a little." Lily glanced at the door, where the black car was waiting. "Uncle James gets mad when I'm late," she said, her voice tight. Emma's heart clenched. "We won't keep him waiting long," she reassured her. "But is there something he says or does that makes you scared?" Lily shook her head quickly, but her fidgeting betrayed her unease. "No, he just doesn't like it when I waste time." Emma studied her carefully. The words themselves seemed innocuous, but the tension in Lily's demeanor told a different story. Whatever pressures Lily felt, they were deeply internalized, likely the result of unspoken expectations rather than explicit actions. "All right," Emma said, her tone light again, "but if you ever need to share, I'm here." Lily nodded quickly, grabbed her bag, and hurried out the door. After school, Emma finally decided to deliver the letter. She walked toward the sleek black car where Westwood stood waiting, his sharp gaze scanning the schoolyard like a sentinel. "Mr. Westwood," Emma called as she approached, clutching the envelope tightly. He turned, his expression immediately guarded. "Miss Hart," he greeted, his tone neutral. "I wanted to give you this," Emma said, holding out the letter. "It's about Lily." Westwood took the envelope but didn't open it, his brow furrowed slightly, his posture stiffening. "I assume this contains more of your observations." Emma met his gaze squarely. "It contains my concerns, yes, and suggestions for how we might work together to support Lily." His lips pressed into a thin line. "I appreciate your intentions, but as I've said before, Lily is my responsibility. And as her teacher, she's also mine," Emma replied, her voice firm but not confrontational. "This isn't about blame, Mr. Westwood. It's about making sure Lily feels secure and supported." Westwood studied her for a long moment before nodding curtly. "I'll read it." As he turned and got into the car, Emma watched them drive away, the weight of their shared responsibility settling heavily on her shoulders. She had done what she could for now, but the path ahead still felt uncertain. Emma knew that whatever walls Westwood had built around himself and Lily, they were rooted in pain. Breaking through them would take time, persistence, and an unwavering commitment to the quiet, brave girl who carried far too much on her small shoulders. The following week began with an unusual energy at Lincoln Elementary. Emma Hart, felt the subtle shift as she entered the school building early Monday morning. The hallways buzzed with whispers, and even the staff room carried an air of quiet speculation. The source of the change became clear soon enough. A new addition to the faculty had arrived. Emma first noticed him during the morning assembly. Standing near Principal Wilkins, he exuded a calm confidence. His tall frame, neatly combed hair, and sharp but understated suit marked him as someone accustomed to carrying authority. Principal Wilkins introduced him to the students and staff as Mr. Andrew Calder, the school's new counselor. His task, to offer additional support to students in need, a role clearly born from increasing pressures within the school community. Later, in the staff room, Emma met Andrew properly. "Miss Hart," he said with a firm handshake. His voice carried an unassuming warmth that immediately put her at ease. "I've already heard about your dedication to the students here." Emma smiled. "Curious. I wasn't expecting a new counselor." "It's a welcome surprise. Apparently, there's been a growing concern about some of the children," Andrew replied. "The administration felt it was time to add another layer of support." Emma hesitated, debating whether to bring up Lily. Eventually, she decided there was no harm in being direct. "There's one student, in particular, I think you should meet, Lily Bennett. She's bright and kind, but very withdrawn. I've tried connecting with her, but there's a lot she's holding back." Andrew nodded thoughtfully. "I'll make a note to speak with her. Sometimes a fresh perspective can make a difference." That afternoon, Emma observed from a distance as Andrew introduced himself to the students during lunch. He moved through the cafeteria with an ease that belied the often intimidating role of an authority figure. When he reached Lily, who sat alone as usual, Emma held her breath. Lily's posture stiffened as Andrew knelt to her level, offering her a gentle smile. Emma couldn't hear their conversation, but Andrew's calm demeanor and Lily's cautious responses told her enough. It was a tentative interaction, but the fact that Lily didn't immediately retreat was a small victory. Over the next few days, Emma and Andrew began working more closely, sharing observations about Lily and brainstorming ways to help her. Andrew's insights, drawn from years of experience in child counseling, added a new dimension to Emma's understanding of Lily's behavior. "She's carrying a lot of guilt," Andrew remarked during one of their discussions. They sat in Emma's classroom after hours, papers spread between them. It's not uncommon for children who've experienced loss to feel responsible, even when it's irrational. Emma frowned, recalling Lily's quiet comment about not wasting her uncle's time. "Do you think it stems from her mother's passing?" "Possibly," Andrew said, "but there's likely more to it. Children don't live in isolation. Their emotions are shaped by their environments and the adults around them." Emma hesitated before sharing her concerns about James Westwood. "Her uncle is very guarded. He clearly cares for her, but I think he's struggling to connect." Andrew raised an eyebrow. "Have you spoken with him about this?" "I've tried," Emma admitted, "but he's resistant. He keeps everything close to the chest." Andrew leaned back in his chair, considering this. It might help to approach him indirectly, build trust over time. In the meantime, let's focus on creating a safe space for Lily here. By the end of the week, Emma noticed subtle changes in Lily's demeanor. She was still reserved, but there were moments of openness, an extra second of eye contact, a small smile when Emma complimented her work. It was as though the combined efforts of Emma and Andrew had begun to chip away at the wall Lily had built around herself. One afternoon, Andrew asked to hold a group activity for Emma's class. The exercise was designed to encourage teamwork and self-expression, and Emma readily agreed. As the students participated, Emma watched Lily carefully. At first, the girl seemed reluctant to engage, her movements hesitant as she joined a small group. But as the activity progressed, Lily's confidence grew. By the end, she was laughing softly with her peers, a sound so rare it felt almost foreign. After the activity, Emma and Andrew exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the small but significant progress they had witnessed. That evening, as Emma locked up her classroom, she found Andrew waiting by the door. "Good work today," he said with a grin. "I think we're starting to get through to her." Emma nodded, though her thoughts remained cautious. It's a start, but there's still so much we don't know about her life outside of school. Andrew's expression turned serious. "I'll keep talking to her. Sometimes it just takes one person asking the right question at the right time." Emma smiled faintly, appreciating his optimism. "Let's hope that person is one of us." As she walked to her car, Emma felt a flicker of hope. Lily's journey was far from over, but with Andrew's support, Emma believed they could help her find the light she so desperately needed. The next week brought an unexpected development that shifted the careful balance Emma Hart had been nurturing. On a crisp Wednesday morning, the black car that usually whisked Lily away after school remained absent. Instead, Lily lingered in the hallway after class, her small frame dwarfed by her oversized coat. Emma noticed the unusual scene as she gathered her materials for a staff meeting. "Lily," Emma called gently, approaching the girl. "Is everything okay? Is your uncle running late?" Lily hesitated, clutching her backpack tightly. He didn't come today." Emma frowned, concern welling up. "Did he let you know why?" Lily shook her head, her voice barely audible. "He usually sends someone if he can't come, but no one came." Emma knelt to meet her eye level. "Do you have a phone number for him? Or anyone else who can pick you up?" Lily fished a crumpled slip of paper from her pocket and handed it over. Emma took it, dialing the number immediately. It rang several times before a gruff voice answered. "Westwood," the voice said, brusque and tired. "Mr. Westwood, this is Emma Hart, Lily's teacher," she began, trying to keep her tone neutral. "She's still at school, and I wanted to check if someone is coming to pick her up." There was a long pause before Westwood responded, his voice tinged with something Emma couldn't quite place. Guilt, perhaps. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said shortly, then hung up. Emma looked at Lily, whose expression remained unreadable. "He's on his way," she reassured her. "Why don't you come sit in the classroom while we wait?" Lily nodded mutely, following Emma back to the empty room. As they sat together, Emma tried to draw Lily out. "It's been a busy week, hasn't it? You've been doing great with your reading." Lily offered a small smile but didn't respond. "Do you like the new counselor, Mr. Calder?" Emma pressed gently. "He seems nice, doesn't he?" Lily's fingers toyed with the strap of her backpack. "He talks a lot," she said softly, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at her lips. Emma chuckled. "He does like to ask questions, but that's how he gets to know people." Lily glanced at her. "Do you think he can really help?" The question caught Emma off guard, but she answered honestly. "I think he wants to, and I know he's good at listening." Lily's gaze dropped again, and she seemed lost in thought. Emma didn't push further, letting the silence settle between them. 20 minutes stretched into 30 before Westwood arrived. When he stepped into the classroom, his usual polished appearance was slightly disheveled, his tie loosened and his face lined with fatigue. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Lily. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. Lily stood quickly, her posture tense. "It's okay." Emma approached Westwood, lowering her voice. "Mr. Westwood, is everything all right? It's not like you to be late." Westwood hesitated, then sighed heavily. "Something came up at work. I didn't mean to worry her." Emma studied him, noting the exhaustion etched into his features. If you ever need help coordinating pickups or anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out. Lily's safety is our priority." Westwood's jaw tightened and he nodded curtly. "Thank you, Miss Hart." As he led Lily out of the classroom, Emma couldn't shake the unease that lingered. Something about Westwood's demeanor felt off, as though he were carrying a burden too heavy to bear. The next day, Emma brought up the incident with Andrew Calder during their lunch break. "He seemed overwhelmed," Emma said, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. "It's clear he cares about Lily, but I'm worried he might be struggling more than he lets on." Andrew leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Have you considered suggesting a meeting, just the three of you?" Emma hesitated. "I don't want to overstep. He's already defensive about Lily's care." "Sometimes people need a nudge," Andrew said, "especially when they're dealing with loss." "He might not realize how much support he needs." Emma nodded slowly. "I'll think about it." That evening, Emma drafted an email to Westwood, proposing a meeting to discuss Lily's progress and any additional support she might need. She kept the tone neutral, framing it as a collaborative effort. Before sending it, she paused, her finger hovering over the mouse. Was she pushing too hard? After a moment's hesitation, she clicked send. The response came the following morning, curt but agreeable. Westwood would meet with her and Andrew after school on Friday. When Friday arrived, Emma felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as she prepared for the meeting. Westwood arrived promptly, his demeanor guarded as always. Andrew joined shortly after, bringing his usual calm energy to the room. The conversation began tentatively, with Emma highlighting Lily's recent progress and her growing confidence. Andrew added observations about her resilience and the importance of fostering a supportive environment. Westwood listened quietly, his arms crossed. When Emma finally broached the subject of his own well-being, his expression hardened. "I'm fine," he said firmly. "My focus is on Lily." Andrew interjected gently. "Supporting Lily includes taking care of yourself. It's not a weakness to ask for help." Westwood's gaze flicked between them, his defenses wavering. "I'll think about it," he muttered, his tone reluctant but not dismissive. As the meeting concluded, Emma felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't a breakthrough, but it was a step forward. For Lily's sake, she would continue to push for progress, no matter how slow or challenging the journey might be. The days following the meeting with James Westwood were marked by a subtle but noticeable shift in the rhythm of life at Lincoln Elementary. Lily Bennett, while still reserved, seemed to carry herself with a fraction less weight. Emma Hart observed her closely, noticing small but significant changes, a willingness to engage more during group activities, fleeting smiles that hinted at a growing sense of security, and an occasional laugh that broke through her quiet demeanor. Andrew Calder, the school's new counselor, continued to play an active role in fostering these improvements. His presence had become a steady constant in Lily's school life, and Emma could see the beginnings of trust forming between them. Yet Emma knew this was only part of the picture. Whatever was happening outside the school walls still cast a shadow over Lily, and James Westwood's reticence to fully engage remained a persistent challenge. One rainy afternoon, as the students packed up for the day, Emma approached Lily's desk. "Lily, could you stay for a few minutes after class? I'd like to talk with you about something." Lily nodded, her expression cautious but compliant. Once the other children had left, Emma pulled up a chair beside her. "I've noticed how much progress you've been making lately," Emma began, her tone warm. "You've been participating more, and I'm so proud of how hard you're working." Lily's cheeks flushed faintly, and she murmured, "Thank you." Emma leaned in slightly. "But I also know it hasn't been easy for you. I wanted to ask if there's anything more I can do to help." For a moment, Lily seemed to consider the question. Her small hands fiddled with the strap of her backpack, and she avoided Emma's gaze. "I don't know," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "That's okay," Emma reassured her. "You don't have to know right now. Just remember, you can always talk to me or Mr. Calder. We're here for you." Lily nodded, her posture softening slightly. "Okay." That evening, as Emma prepared to leave the school, she found Andrew waiting for her in the staff room. "How did it go with Lily?" he asked, sipping from a mug of tea. "She's opening up bit by bit," Emma replied, setting her bag on the table. "But I still feel like there's something she's holding back. Something bigger." Andrew nodded thoughtfully. "It's likely tied to her home life. Children often mirror the emotional states of the adults around them." Emma sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I just wish I knew how to help James too. He's carrying so much, and I think he's struggling more than he lets on." Andrew hesitated before speaking. "You might not be able to fix everything for him. Sometimes the best we can do is be consistent and present, show him and Lily that they're not alone." 2 days later, an opportunity arose that neither Emma nor Andrew had anticipated. During the lunch break, Principal Wilkins approached Emma with an urgent request. "Miss Hart, Mr. Westwood just called," he said, his expression serious. "He's tied up with an emergency and can't pick up Lily today. He asked if someone from the school could stay with her until he arrives." Emma didn't hesitate. "I'll wait with her." When the school day ended, Emma sat with Lily in the empty classroom. The girl worked quietly on her homework, the tip of her pencil moving steadily across the page. Emma watched her, marveling at her quiet resilience. "Lily," Emma said after a while, "do you like doing your homework here? Or would you rather wait somewhere else?" Lily glanced up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Here is okay," she said softly. They lapsed into a comfortable silence, the steady rhythm of the rain outside providing a soothing backdrop. Emma used the time to catch up on grading, occasionally glancing at Lily and feeling a deep sense of protectiveness. Nearly an hour passed before James Westwood arrived. He looked more frazzled than Emma had ever seen him, his hair slightly askew and his tie loosened. He stepped into the room, his sharp gaze softening as it landed on Lily. "Thank you, Miss Hart," he said, his voice tinged with exhaustion. "I appreciate you staying late." "It's no problem," Emma replied, standing. "Lily's been a joy to have here." Westwood gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, then turned to Lily. "Come on, let's go." Lily gathered her things, but as they reached the door, she paused and looked back at Emma. "Thank you," she said quietly. Emma smiled. "You're welcome, Lily. Have a good evening." That night, Emma reflected on the day's events. For the first time, she had seen cracks in James Westwood's polished armor, a glimpse of the man struggling beneath the surface. It reinforced her belief that both Lily and her uncle needed more than just surface-level support. They needed a bridge to connect the pain they carried, a path toward healing. Emma resolved to keep building that bridge, one interaction at a time. Whether through her own efforts or with Andrew's help, she was determined to help Lily and James find their way forward, together. The following week brought an air of unease that Emma Hart couldn't quite shake. Lily Bennett continued to make small strides at school, her smiles appearing more often and her engagement in class slowly increasing. Yet, Emma couldn't ignore the lingering tension that seemed to surround James Westwood. Their brief interactions, while polite, were tinged with a quiet desperation he tried to mask beneath his composed exterior. It was during Wednesday's lunch break that the situation began to unravel. Emma was sitting in the staff room, reviewing lesson plans, when Principal Wilkins entered with an urgent expression. "Miss Hart," he said, his tone serious, "could I have a word?" Emma set down her pen, concern flickering across her face. "Of course. What's going on?" Wilkins gestured for her to follow him to his office. Once inside, he closed the door and leaned against his desk. "I received a call this morning from Mr. Westwood's office," he began. "Apparently, there's been some sort of family emergency. He didn't provide details, but mentioned that he may need to temporarily pull Lily out of school." Emma's stomach dropped. Did he say why, or how long she might be gone? Wilkins shook his head. He was vague, but it sounded serious. "I thought you should know, given how closely you've been working with her." Emma nodded, her mind racing. "Thank you for letting me know. I'll keep an eye on her in the meantime." That afternoon, as the students filed out of the classroom, Emma called Lily over. "Lily," she said softly, crouching to meet the girl's eye level. "Can we talk for a moment?" Lily nodded, clutching her backpack tightly. Emma led her to a quieter corner of the room. "I heard from your uncle today," she began gently. "He mentioned there might be some changes coming. Is everything okay at home?" Lily's eyes widened, and she shook her head quickly. "I don't know," she whispered. "He doesn't tell me anything." Emma placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, Lily. Whatever happens, we'll make sure you're taken care of." Lily hesitated, then asked in a trembling voice, "Am I going somewhere?" Emma's heart ached at the fear in her tone. "I don't know all the details yet, but if there's a change, I'll make sure you're safe and supported. You're not alone in this." Lily nodded, though her expression remained troubled. The next day, Emma found herself distracted during her lessons. Thoughts of Lily and her uncertain situation loomed large in her mind. She decided to reach out to Andrew Calder during their shared planning period. "I think something's happening with Lily's family," Emma explained, pacing the small counseling office. "Westwood mentioned a family emergency, and now he's talking about pulling her out of school." Andrew leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed. "Did he give any specifics?" "No," Emma said, shaking her head. "That's the problem. Everything with him is so guarded. I feel like we're constantly trying to piece together a puzzle without all the pieces." Andrew sighed. "It's possible he's trying to shield Lily from whatever's happening, but that might be doing more harm than good. She's already carrying so much uncertainty." Emma nodded, her frustration mounting. "I just wish he'd let us help, for Lily's sake." Andrew stood, his expression thoughtful. "Let's try something. I'll request a meeting with him, not about Lily specifically, but as part of a broader check-in for families. Maybe if we approach it from a different angle, he'll open up." Emma agreed, though she felt a lingering doubt. James Westwood wasn't the kind of man who easily let down his walls. The meeting took place 2 days later, late in the afternoon after the school had emptied. Emma and Andrew waited in the small conference room, the ticking clock on the wall marking the slow passage of time. When Westwood finally arrived, his expression was as composed as ever, though his eyes carried a shadow of weariness. "Mr. Westwood," Andrew greeted, extending a hand. "Thank you for meeting with us." Westwood shook his hand briefly, then took a seat across from them. "Let's get to it," he said curtly. Andrew began by discussing general updates about the school's counseling program, framing the conversation as a routine check-in. Emma watched Westwood closely, noting the way his shoulders remained tense, his gaze fixed firmly on the table. Finally, Andrew broached the subject of Lily. "We've been so impressed with Lily's progress recently," he said warmly. "She's really starting to come out of her shell. But we wanted to make sure we're aligned in supporting her, especially with the changes you mentioned earlier this week." Westwood's jaw tightened. "The situation is complicated," he said after a pause. "There are some personal matters I need to address. It's nothing that concerns the school." "Anything affecting Lily concerns us," Emma interjected gently. We just want to ensure she feels secure during this time. Westwood's gaze flicked to her, a mixture of frustration and something softer, perhaps guilt. I appreciate your concern, he said slowly, but this is a family matter. I'll handle it. Andrew leaned forward slightly. We understand, Mr. Westwood, but Lily trusts her teachers and the environment here. That stability is important for her. For a moment, Westwood said nothing. Then, with a heavy sigh, he nodded. I'll keep you updated. As he left the room, Emma and Andrew exchanged a glance. It wasn't the breakthrough they had hoped for, but it was something, a crack in the armor that surrounded James Westwood and his guarded world. That evening, Emma sat at her desk, reflecting on the day's events. Despite the small progress they had made, a sense of foreboding lingered. She couldn't shake the feeling that the storm surrounding Lily and her uncle was far from over, and that its impact would test them all in ways they couldn't yet foresee. The weekend brought a chill to the air, signaling the slow shift toward winter. Emma Hart spent much of Saturday morning reflecting on her last conversation with James Westwood and the guarded tension he exuded. It was clear he was carrying more than he let on, and she worried that the weight of it might have begun to affect Lily in ways neither of them fully understood. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at her door. She wasn't expecting visitors, so when she opened it and saw Andrew Calder standing there, she was momentarily taken aback. "Andrew," she said, surprised. "What brings you here?" He held up a small folder. "I've been thinking about Lily's situation." "Mind if I come in?" Emma stepped aside, gesturing toward the living room. "Of course. Please have a seat." Andrew sat on the couch, setting the folder on the coffee table. "I've been reviewing some of my notes from my sessions with Lily. She's opened up a little, but there's a recurring theme in what she's shared. She feels like she's not enough." Emma's chest tightened at the words. "Not enough for her uncle, you mean?" Andrew nodded. "She doesn't phrase it that way exactly, but it's implied. She's carrying this invisible pressure to be perfect, to not cause trouble or draw attention to herself. It's heartbreaking because she's such a bright, kind child." Emma leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "And James, he's not exactly warm. He's so focused on maintaining control that he doesn't see how much she's struggling." Andrew sighed. "I don't think it's intentional. From what little I've observed, he seems like someone who's doing his best, but doesn't know how to connect emotionally. He probably thinks providing for her financially is enough." Emma nodded slowly. "But Lily needs more than that." "Exactly," Andrew agreed, "which is why I think we need to find a way to help both of them, separately, if necessary." On Monday morning, Emma arrived at school early, determined to give Lily extra support. She prepared a small project for her class, something she hoped would encourage Lily to express herself creatively, a family tree activity. The students were asked to draw or write about the people who were important to them, using words or pictures to tell their stories. As the class worked on the assignment, Emma watched Lily closely. The girl began hesitantly, drawing the outline of a tree with delicate, deliberate strokes. But as the minutes passed, her hand stilled, and she stared at the blank branches. Emma approached quietly. "Lily, how's it going?" Lily looked up, her eyes uncertain. "I don't know what to put," she admitted, her voice small. Emma knelt beside her. "That's okay. You can include anyone who's important to you. It doesn't have to be just family." Lily nodded but didn't pick up her pencil. After a moment, she whispered, "What if I don't have enough people?" Emma's heart ached at the question. "It's not about how many people, Lily. It's about who matters to you. Even one person can fill the whole tree if they're special enough." Lily seemed to consider this, then began drawing again. By the end of the activity, her tree had just 2 names on its branches: Mom and Uncle James. But beneath the tree, in small, neat letters, she had written Miss Hart and Mr. Calder. When Emma saw it, she felt an unexpected lump rise in her throat. She smiled at Lily. "This is beautiful. Thank you for sharing it with me." Later that afternoon, as the students filed out of the classroom, Emma called Andrew to share what had happened. "She added your name and mine to her family tree," Emma said, her voice tinged with emotion. "It's such a small thing, but it feels huge." Andrew was quiet for a moment before replying, "It means she sees you as a safe place. That's no small thing at all." Emma sighed. "But it also means she doesn't feel like she has enough at home. That's what worries me." Andrew hesitated. "I've been thinking about that. I've been in touch with a family therapist I trust. Maybe we could gently suggest the idea to James, not as something punitive, but as a way to help them both." Emma nodded, though she knew it wouldn't be easy to convince him. "It's worth a try. He might not listen, but we have to try." The following day, Emma approached James at pickup time. He looked more composed than he had during their last meeting, but his guarded expression remained. "Mr. Westwood," Emma began, keeping her tone light. "Do you have a moment?" He glanced at Lily, who was climbing into the car, then back at Emma. "What is it?" "I wanted to share something Lily worked on in class," she said, handing him a copy of her family tree. "She included you, of course, but she also added me and Mr. Calder." James studied the paper, his expression unreadable. "And what's your point?" Emma hesitated, then said carefully, "Lily's starting to feel more connected here, which is wonderful. But I think it's because she's not sure how to express herself at home. I know you're doing everything you can, but maybe a family therapist could help bridge that gap." James stiffened, his jaw tightening. "You think I'm not doing enough?" "Not at all," Emma said quickly. "I think you're doing your best, but grief and change are hard for anyone, and having someone to guide you both could make things easier for you and Lily." For a long moment, James said nothing. Then, with a reluctant nod, he said, "I'll think about it." As Emma watched him drive away, she felt both hopeful and uncertain. It was a small step, but it was a step nonetheless, one that might lead to the healing Lily and James so desperately needed. The chill in the air deepened as November crept toward its close. At Lincoln Elementary, the days grew shorter, but Emma Hart's concern for Lily Bennett seemed to stretch endlessly. The small victories, the growing trust, the tentative smiles now felt fragile, as though they could unravel with a single misstep. It was late in the afternoon when Emma received an unexpected visitor. James Westwood appeared at the door of her classroom, his expression taut. He wasn't dressed in his usual tailored suit. Instead, he wore a dark sweater and jeans, his appearance less polished, but somehow more human. "Miss Hart," he said, his voice measured. "Do you have a moment?" Emma nodded, gesturing toward the small table at the back of the room. "Of course, please, come in." As he sat, Emma noticed the faint shadows under his eyes and the way his hands fidgeted with his watch. She took a seat across from him, waiting for him to speak. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began, his gaze fixed on the table. "About therapy, about Lily." Emma remained silent, sensing he needed space to find his words. "I've been trying to do this on my own," he continued, his voice tinged with frustration. "Since my sister passed, I've done everything I could to keep things stable, but it's not enough, is it?" Emma softened her tone. "You've done a remarkable job providing for Lily, but stability isn't just about the material things. It's also about feeling seen and supported. And that's something we all need help with sometimes." James leaned back, exhaling heavily. "I don't know how to fix it. I barely know how to talk to her. Emma's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. You don't have to have all the answers. That's what therapy is for, to help both of you find the tools to navigate this together. James nodded slowly, as though processing the weight of her words. I've contacted someone, he said finally. A therapist. We're meeting next week. Relief washed over Emma. That's a wonderful step, Mr. Westwood. It's not easy to take that first one, but it's the most important. For a brief moment, his eyes met hers, and she saw a flicker of gratitude. Thank you, Miss Hart, for caring about Lily, Emma smiled. She's a special girl. It's impossible not to care. The next day, Emma noticed a subtle shift in Lily's demeanor. During reading time, the girl seemed more focused, her small hands turning the pages of her book with intent. At recess, she lingered near a group of classmates instead of sitting alone, watching their game with quiet interest. By the time the day ended, Emma felt hopeful. Perhaps James's decision to seek therapy would mark a turning point for both of them. But as the week progressed, that hope was tested. One afternoon, as Emma tidied up her classroom, she overheard raised voices in the hallway. Stepping out, she saw Lily standing near the front office, her face pale and her shoulders hunched. James stood beside her, his voice low but tense as he spoke to the school secretary. Emma approached cautiously. Is everything all right? James turned, his expression tight with frustration. It's fine, just a miscommunication. Lily's eyes darted to Emma, her fear unmistakable. Sensing the tension, Emma knelt to Lily's level. Hey, Lily. Why don't you come back to the classroom with me for a minute? Lily glanced at her uncle, who gave a reluctant nod. She followed Emma back to the classroom, her steps slow and hesitant. Once inside, Emma offered her a seat. Do you want to talk about what happened? Lily shook her head, her hands gripping the edge of the desk. Uncle James is upset, she whispered. Emma crouched beside her, keeping her voice gentle. Sometimes grown-ups get upset about things that have nothing to do with us. It doesn't mean they don't care about us. Lily hesitated, then nodded faintly. Would it help if I talked to him for you? Emma offered. Lily glanced at her, a flicker of relief in her expression. Maybe. Emma found James waiting in the hallway, his posture rigid. She approached him cautiously. Mr. Westwood, is everything okay? He exhaled sharply. It's nothing to worry about. Lily forgot something she needed, and I overreacted. Emma studied him for a moment, her tone softening. She's scared, James. Whatever's going on, she needs to feel safe. James rubbed a hand over his face, the frustration in his movements evident. I don't know how to do this, Miss Hart. I don't know how to be what she needs. You're already taking steps to figure that out, Emma reminded him. It's okay to make mistakes. What matters is that you keep trying and that Lily knows you're trying. James nodded, though his expression remained troubled. I'll talk to her. As he left, Emma returned to the classroom, where Lily was still sitting quietly. She crouched beside her again. Your uncle's working hard to do the right thing for you, Lily. He cares about you a lot. Lily looked at her, uncertainty in her eyes. I just wish things were easier. Emma smiled gently. So do I. But sometimes the hardest things make us stronger. That evening, as Emma reflected on the day, she felt the weight of the challenges ahead. James and Lily were navigating a difficult path, but they weren't doing it alone anymore. And that, she reminded herself, was a start. The first frost of December coated the grounds of Lincoln Elementary with a thin layer of shimmering ice. The children loved it, their laughter echoing across the playground as they slid and skidded on the frozen surface. But for Emma Hart, the biting cold only heightened the tension that had been building over the past weeks. Inside her classroom, Emma found Lily Bennett seated at her desk, her head bent low over a worksheet. The girl had been quiet all morning, more so than usual, and Emma couldn't ignore the heaviness in her small shoulders. Something was troubling Lily, something beyond the usual struggles Emma had come to expect. It wasn't until recess that Emma had a chance to approach her. Most of the students were outside, bundled in coats and scarves, but Lily lingered in the classroom, her gaze fixed on the frost-covered windows. "Lily," Emma said gently, pulling up a chair beside her. "You seem a little quiet today. Is everything okay?" Lily hesitated, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. "I don't know," she whispered finally. "Uncle James has been different." Emma's brow furrowed. "Different how?" Lily shrugged, her voice barely audible. "He's nice sometimes, but then he gets mad about little things. Like he's mad at himself, not me." Emma nodded, her heart heavy. James's internal struggles were clearly spilling over into his interactions with Lily. "It sounds like he's trying, but maybe he's not sure how to handle everything." Lily glanced at her, her eyes wide and uncertain. "What if he doesn't want me anymore?" The words hit Emma like a punch to the chest. She reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder. "Lily, your uncle loves you. He's just figuring out how to show it. And even when things feel hard, there are people who care about you and want to help." Lily nodded faintly, but the worry in her expression remained. That afternoon, as the students filed out of the classroom, Emma found herself pacing. She needed to talk to James, to make him understand how his behavior was affecting Lily, but the right words eluded her, and she feared pushing him too far. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. To her surprise, James stood there, his expression weary. "Miss Hart," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "Do you have a minute?" Emma nodded, gesturing for him to enter. "Of course." James stepped inside, his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets. He glanced around the classroom before speaking. "Lily told me about the family tree project." Emma smiled softly. She worked hard on it. "I think it was a way for her to express how she feels about the people in her life." James nodded, his jaw tightening. "It made me realize how much I've failed her." "You haven't failed her," Emma said gently. "You're here and you're trying. That's what matters." James exhaled heavily, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know how to do this, Miss Hart. I've spent my entire life focused on my career, on being successful. And now I have this incredible little girl who needs me, and I'm failing her at every turn." Emma shook her head. "You're not failing, James. But Lily needs more than your presence. She needs to feel safe and understood. And sometimes that means letting go of the need to have all the answers." James stared at her, his eyes heavy with doubt. "I'm trying, but I don't know if it's enough." "It is," Emma said firmly, "because you care. And that's where it starts." The conversation seemed to have a small effect. Over the next few days, Emma noticed subtle changes in James. He arrived at pickup with a little more patience, and Lily seemed less tense in his presence. But the progress was fragile, and Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was still holding James back. It was Andrew Calder who confirmed her suspicions. Late one evening, as they worked together on a school project, Andrew shared a revelation. "James reached out to the therapist," Andrew said, setting down his pen. "But he cancelled the first session." Emma frowned. "Why?" "He didn't say," Andrew replied. "But I get the sense he's afraid of what he might uncover, or of being seen as weak." Emma sighed, her frustration mounting. "How do we help someone who doesn't want to be helped?" Andrew leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "We keep showing up. We keep reminding him and Lily that they're not alone." The next day, Emma arranged a meeting with James, Andrew, and Principal Wilkins. She knew it was a risk, but she also knew they needed to address the underlying issues before they became insurmountable. The meeting began with James's usual guarded demeanor, but as Emma and Andrew shared their observations and concerns, his defenses began to crack. By the end, he admitted to feeling overwhelmed and unsure of how to move forward. "I just want to do right by her," James said, his voice breaking, "but I don't know how." Principal Wilkins leaned forward, his tone firm but kind. "You don't have to do it alone, Mr. Westwood. Let us help you." For the first time, James didn't argue. He simply nodded, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face. That evening, as Emma prepared to leave the school, she noticed Lily waiting by the playground. She approached the girl, kneeling beside her. "Are you okay, Lily?" Lily looked up, her expression soft. Uncle James smiled today, a real smile. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. "That's wonderful, Lily. I think he's starting to realize how much you mean to him." Lily nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I think so too." As they stood together under the fading light, Emma felt a renewed sense of hope. The road ahead would be long, but for the first time, it felt like they were moving towards something brighter. The first snow of the season fell silently over the town, blanketing the streets and rooftops in a pristine white. At Lincoln Elementary, the students buzzed with excitement, their laughter carrying through the halls as they anticipated snowball fights and sledding adventures. But Emma Hart's mind was elsewhere, focused intently on a plan that had been forming over the past few days. James Westwood's reluctance to fully engage with therapy weighed heavily on her. She knew that without a concrete step forward, the progress they had made with Lily could stall, or worse, unravel entirely. It wasn't just about convincing James, it was about creating a path where both he and Lily could begin to heal together. That afternoon, as the final bell rang, Emma caught Andrew Calder in the hallway. "Andrew," she said, her tone brisk but determined, "I have an idea, but I need your help." Andrew raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "I'm listening." Emma explained her plan, a parent-child event at the school, designed to encourage connection through shared activities. It would be simple, craft projects, storytelling, maybe even a small performance by the students, but most importantly, it would provide an opportunity for James and Lily to interact in a safe, supportive environment. Andrew nodded thoughtfully. That could work. It gives James a chance to engage without the pressure of one-on-one interactions, and it might show him that small moments can make a big difference. Exactly, Emma agreed. But we need to frame it carefully. If it feels like we're targeting him, he might back out. Andrew smiled faintly. You have a knack for persuasion, Emma. I trust you'll find the right approach. The next morning, Emma approached James during drop-off. The usual guarded expression was firmly in place, but she noticed a flicker of warmth when he glanced at Lily. "Mr. Westwood," Emma began, keeping her tone casual. "I wanted to let you know about an event we're hosting next week, a family day for the students. It's a chance for parents and guardians to spend time with their kids, see some of the work they've been doing, and participate in a few fun activities." James hesitated, his gaze shifting to Lily, who was tugging at the strap of her backpack. "I'm not sure if my schedule will allow it." "I understand," Emma said, her voice steady. "But it would mean a lot to Lily. She's been working hard on a project she'd love to show you." James glanced at Lily again, his expression softening just slightly. "I'll see what I can do." The days leading up to the event were filled with preparation. Emma worked tirelessly with her students, helping them create colorful decorations and rehearse their presentations. Lily, though quieter than the others, threw herself into the project with surprising enthusiasm. She spent hours crafting a diorama of her family tree, carefully placing each branch and leaf with precision. "Miss Hart," she asked one afternoon, her voice hesitant, "do you think Uncle James will come?" Emma crouched beside her, offering a reassuring smile. "I think he'll try his best, Lily, and no matter what, your work is something to be proud of." Lily nodded, her small hands steadying the tiny figurines she had placed in the diorama. On the day of the event, the school buzzed with energy. Parents and guardians filled the halls, their voices mingling with the excited chatter of children. Emma stood at the door of her classroom, greeting each family as they arrived. When James Westwood appeared in the doorway, Emma felt a wave of relief. He was dressed more casually than usual, his demeanor less rigid. But it was the way he glanced at Lily that caught Emma's attention, a mix of uncertainty and determination. "Uncle James!" Lily's face lit up as she ran to him, her diorama clutched in her hands. "I want to show you what I made." James smiled, a rare, genuine expression, and followed her to her desk. Emma watched from a distance as Lily explained each detail of her project, her small hands gesturing animatedly. James listened intently, nodding and asking questions. For the first time, Emma saw a glimpse of the connection they had both been yearning for. As the event continued, Emma noticed James engaging more. He helped Lily with a craft project, carefully gluing pieces of colored paper together under her watchful guidance. At one point, he even joined in a storytelling activity, his deep voice captivating the small group of children gathered around him. Andrew sidled up to Emma, a satisfied smile on his face. "You were right. This was exactly what they needed." Emma nodded, her chest swelling with a quiet pride. "It's a small step, but it's something." As the event wound down, James approached Emma, Lily by his side. "Miss Hart," he said, his tone softer than she had ever heard. "Thank you for this. It's been good for both of us." Emma smiled warmly. "I'm glad you came. Lily's work is amazing, isn't it?" James glanced at Lily, his expression unguarded for once. "It is." That evening, as Emma cleaned up the remnants of the event, she couldn't shake the feeling of hope that had settled in her chest. For the first time, she saw a future where Lily and James could truly begin to heal, where their shared pain could transform into something stronger, something that would bind them together instead of pushing them apart. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a beginning, and for now, that was enough. The days following the family event were filled with a cautious optimism. James Westwood seemed more present, showing up to pick Lily up on time and even stopping to chat briefly with Emma on occasion. For Lily, these small changes brought a visible lightness to her demeanor. She laughed more in class, raised her hand to answer questions, and even joined a group project with her peers, an achievement Emma couldn't help but celebrate quietly. But progress, as Emma had learned, was never linear. It was on a Friday morning when Emma noticed the first crack in the fragile sense of stability they had worked so hard to build. Lily entered the classroom looking pale, her usual bright eyes clouded with worry. She sat at her desk without her usual nod of acknowledgement and stared at her notebook as if it were written in an indecipherable language. "Lily," Emma said gently, kneeling beside her. "Are you feeling okay?" Lily hesitated, then shrugged. "I didn't sleep much," she admitted in a whisper. Emma's heart sank. "Did something happen at home?" Lily's gaze dropped to her lap, and she nodded almost imperceptibly. "Uncle James had a phone call. It made him really mad." Emma didn't press further, knowing Lily would share only what she felt comfortable with. But the shadow of unease stayed with her throughout the day. Later that afternoon, as the students left for the weekend, Emma lingered at her desk, debating whether to reach out to James. Before she could make a decision, her phone buzzed with a message from Andrew Calder. "Can you meet me in my office? Something's come up." Emma grabbed her coat and headed to the counseling office. When she arrived, Andrew's expression was grave. "I just got off the phone with the family therapist James contacted. Andrew began. He cancelled their second session. Emma sighed, the weight of disappointment settling heavily on her shoulders. Did they say why? Andrew shook his head. The therapist said he sounded overwhelmed, like he wasn't sure he could handle opening up. Emma rubbed her temples, frustration mounting. He's so close, Andrew. He wants to do the right thing, but he keeps pulling back. Andrew leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. We need to act carefully here. If we push too hard, he might shut down completely, but if we do nothing, Lily will bear the brunt of it. Emma nodded, though her mind raced with uncertainty. What do we do? Let's start with Lily, Andrew suggested. If she's feeling the strain, we need to make sure she knows she's supported. The following Monday, Emma set aside time during recess to check in with Lily. They sat together in the quiet classroom, the faint hum of activity from the playground drifting in through the windows. Lily, Emma began softly, I wanted to talk to you about how things are going at home. If something's been bothering you, I want you to know it's okay to tell me. Lily hesitated, her small hands twisting in her lap. Uncle James is trying, she said finally. But sometimes he gets really quiet, and other times he gets mad. I think he's upset about Mom. Emma felt a pang of sadness. That makes sense, Lily. Losing someone we love is really hard, and everyone handles it differently, but you're not responsible for how he feels. Do you understand that? Lily nodded, though her expression remained uncertain. Have you been talking to Mr. Calder about how you're feeling? Emma asked. A little, Lily admitted. He's nice. Emma smiled. He is, and he cares about you, just like I do. So if you ever feel scared or unsure, promise me you'll talk to one of us, okay? Lily nodded again, this time with a bit more conviction. Okay. That evening, Emma decided to try one last approach with James. She called him, her fingers tapping nervously on her desk as the phone rang. Miss Hart, James answered, his tone guarded. Mr. Westwood, Emma began, choosing her words carefully. I wanted to check in about Lily. She's been doing so well at school, but I'm worried she's picking up on some of the stress at home. There was a long pause before James spoke. I'm doing the best I can. I know you are, Emma said gently, but I think she'd benefit from seeing you take care of yourself too. That's why the therapy is so important for both of you. James exhaled sharply. It's not that simple, Miss Hart. I know it's not, Emma replied. But sometimes the hardest things are the ones that matter the most. Lily looks up to you. She needs to see that it's okay to ask for help. Another pause followed, longer this time. Finally, James said, I'll think about it. The next morning, Emma arrived at school to find a note on her desk. It was written in James's precise handwriting, its brevity both frustrating and hopeful. Thank you for everything. I'll try. It wasn't a promise, but it was a start. And for Emma, that was enough to keep fighting for Lily and James's chance at healing. The morning was heavy with clouds, the kind that threatened snow but held back, leaving a dull grey sky in its place. Emma Hart arrived early at Lincoln Elementary, her breath visible in the icy air. She carried a thermos of coffee and a growing sense of trepidation. The note James Westwood had left on her desk the previous day replayed in her mind. Thank you for everything. I'll try. It had been both an acknowledgement and a plea, a fragile thread of hope she was determined to hold on to. The school day began as usual, but by mid-morning, Emma noticed Lily was unusually subdued. The girl sat quietly at her desk, her pencil moving absently across her notebook. During group activities, she hovered at the edges, hesitant to engage. When recess arrived, Emma gently intercepted Lily before she could head outside. Lily, Would you stay for a moment? I'd like to talk. Lily nodded, her small shoulders tense. Emma led her to a corner of the classroom where they could speak privately. How are you feeling today? Emma asked, her tone soft. Lily hesitated, then shrugged. I'm okay. Emma studied her for a moment. You seem a little quiet. Is something on your mind? Lily fidgeted with the hem of her sweater, her gaze fixed on the floor. Uncle James was really upset last night, she murmured. He yelled. A lot. Emma's chest tightened. Did he yell at you? Lily shook her head quickly. No, not at me, but it was scary. He said he's tired of everything being so hard. Emma took a deep breath, steadying herself. Lily, it's okay to feel scared, but you need to remember that none of this is your fault. Your uncle is going through a tough time, but that doesn't mean he doesn't care about you. Lily nodded, though her expression remained troubled. I just wish I could make him happy. Emma felt a pang of sadness. You're not responsible for his happiness, Lily. The best thing you can do is just be yourself. That's what he needs most. That afternoon, Emma sought out Andrew Calder during their shared planning period. She recounted her conversation with Lily, her concern evident. Andrew, I'm worried this is taking a toll on her, Emma said. She's internalizing everything, trying to shoulder more than any child should. Andrew nodded thoughtfully. And James, he's clearly struggling to manage his own emotions. It's a recipe for tension. We need to intervene, Emma said firmly. But how? He's so resistant to help even when he knows he needs it. Andrew leaned forward, his voice calm but resolute. We focus on what we can control. For Lily, that means continuing to give her a safe space here. For James, maybe it's time to bring in someone from his world, a colleague, a friend, someone he trusts. Emma frowned. Do we even know if he has anyone like that? Andrew shrugged. It's worth finding out. People like James don't build walls without a reason. Maybe there's someone out there who can get through to him in ways we can't. That evening, Emma went through the limited information she had about James Westwood. His guarded nature meant there was little to go on, but she remembered one detail from their earlier conversations. His sister, Lily's late mother, had worked closely with him. If anyone could provide insight into James's struggles, it might be someone connected to his family. The next morning, Emma reached out to Principal Wilkins for guidance. Together, they agreed to contact a former colleague of James's sister, a woman named Catherine Barnes, who had worked with her in the same company. By afternoon, Emma received a reply. Catherine was willing to meet and discuss James and Lily, though she admitted her relationship with James had been distant since his sister's passing. The meeting was set for the weekend, giving Emma a glimmer of hope. When Saturday arrived, Emma met Catherine at a small cafe in town. Catherine was a sharp, confident woman in her early 40s, her eyes kind but weary as they discussed the situation. James has always been intense, Catherine admitted. He's brilliant at what he does, but he keeps people at arm's length. His sister, Emily, was the only person who could really reach him. Losing her shattered him. Emma nodded, her heart heavy. And now he's trying to raise Lily while dealing with his own grief. He's doing his best, but it's clear he's struggling, Catherine sighed. He won't ask for help. That's just who he is. But if there's a way to show him that it's not weakness to lean on others, he might listen. Do you think he'd listen to you? Emma asked. Catherine hesitated, then nodded. I'll try. For Lily's sake, I'll try. The following week, Catherine visited James at his office. Emma didn't know what was said during their meeting, but by Wednesday she noticed a shift in James's demeanor. He appeared more composed during pickup, his interactions with Lily tinged with a new patience. It was a small change, but it was enough to give Emma hope. For now, the storm wasn't over, but it had begun to break, leaving room for light to filter through the cracks. And for Emma, that light was enough to keep going. The following weeks brought a fragile semblance of calm to Lincoln Elementary. Lily Bennett seemed lighter in her demeanor, her interactions with her classmates more frequent and animated. James Westwood, though still reserved, appeared less harried during drop-offs and pickups. But Emma Hart knew from experience that healing was rarely a straight path. It was during a Tuesday afternoon recess when the first signs of turbulence re-emerged. Emma had been reviewing her lesson plans when Lily rushed into the classroom, her cheeks flushed and her eyes glistening with tears. "Miss Hart," she cried, clutching a crumpled piece of paper in her hand. "You have to help me." Emma knelt beside her, placing gentle hands on the girl's trembling shoulders. "Lily, what happened?" Lily thrust the paper into Emma's hands, her voice breaking. "Uncle James. He left this on the kitchen table this morning." Emma smoothed the paper, her heart sinking as she read the hastily scrawled note. "Lily, I'll be late tonight. Don't wait up. Dinner's in the fridge." The words were mundane, but the sheer panic in Lily's eyes told Emma there was more to the story. "Why does this upset you, Lily?" she asked softly. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. "He always eats with me now. He promised he wouldn't leave me alone anymore." Emma pulled Lily into a reassuring hug. "It's okay to feel upset, Lily, but this note doesn't mean he doesn't care about you. Sometimes adults get busy, and it doesn't change how much they love us." Lily nodded against Emma's shoulder, but her sobs didn't subside. Emma knew the note was a symptom of something larger, something that James was likely struggling to communicate. That evening, Emma sat in her small living room, staring at her phone. She debated whether to call James, knowing the risk of alienating him further. But the image of Lily's tear-streaked face propelled her forward. When James answered, his voice was clipped. "Miss Hart, is something wrong?" "It's about Lily," Emma began cautiously. "She was very upset today. She found your note and thought it meant you were pulling away." There was a pause, and when James spoke again, his voice was heavy with frustration. "I didn't mean for her to take it that way. I had an important meeting. I didn't think—" Emma cut in gently. "James, she's sensitive to changes right now. She needs consistency to feel secure." "I know," he said, his voice strained. He stopped, exhaling sharply. "I'm trying, Miss Hart. But it feels like everything I do is wrong." Emma softened her tone. "It's not about being perfect, James. It's about being present. Lily doesn't need you to have all the answers. She just needs to know you're there." The following day, James arrived at school earlier than usual. Emma was surprised to see him waiting outside her classroom as she prepared for the day. "Miss Hart," he began, his voice quieter than usual. "Can I speak with you?" Emma nodded, stepping aside to let him in. Once inside, James ran a hand through his hair, his usual composure fraying at the edges. "I want to do right by Lily," he said, his voice tight, "but I feel like I'm failing her every day. Last night, I sat in my office for hours, trying to figure out how to make things better. I didn't want to go home because I knew she'd see how lost I was." Emma's heart ached at his vulnerability. "James, no one expects you to be perfect. Lily doesn't need you to fix everything. She just needs you to be there, even if it's messy." James nodded slowly, as though trying to absorb her words. How do I let her see that?" "Start small," Emma suggested. "Talk to her. Share your feelings, even if it's just a little. She wants to understand you, and that connection will mean more to her than anything else." That evening, James took Emma's advice. As Lily sat at the dinner table, picking at her plate, he set aside his work and joined her. For the first time, he spoke about Emily, his sister and Lily's mother. "Your mom," he began, his voice unsteady. was the strongest person I knew. She always knew how to make people feel safe." Lily looked up, her eyes wide. "You miss her?" "Every day," James admitted. "And sometimes I get so caught up in missing her that I forget to show you how much I care about you." Tears welled in Lily's eyes, but she smiled faintly. "I miss her too." They sat together in the quiet kitchen, the walls that had separated them beginning to crumble. The next day, Lily bounded into the classroom with a renewed brightness. She hugged Emma tightly, her face glowing with hope. "Uncle James talked to me last night," she said. "He told me about Mom. It felt good." Emma knelt to meet Lily's gaze, her own eyes misting with emotion. "That's wonderful, Lily. I'm so proud of you both." As the day unfolded, Emma couldn't shake the sense that something had shifted, something fragile but profound. For the first time, it felt like James and Lily were truly beginning to heal together. It was a small but monumental step forward, one that gave Emma the strength to believe in the possibilities ahead. The winter sun barely pierced the heavy clouds hanging over Lincoln Elementary as Emma Hart arrived early. The previous day's breakthrough with Lily and James Westwood had lifted her spirits, but she knew the journey ahead remained delicate. Every small step forward carried the weight of fragile trust and the ever-present possibility of regression. Inside her classroom, Emma set up for the day, arranging books and organizing supplies for the students. Her thoughts lingered on James's vulnerability and the heartfelt conversation he'd shared with Lily. It had been a moment of progress, but also a reminder of how much both of them were still navigating their grief and uncertainty. When the school day began, Lily entered with a bright smile that stood in stark contrast to the grey sky outside. She walked with purpose to her desk, her usual hesitancy replaced by an energy Emma hadn't seen in weeks. "Good morning, Lily," Emma greeted warmly. "You look happy today." Lily nodded, her eyes sparkling. "Uncle James made breakfast for me this morning. He even let me help." Emma felt her heart swell. "That's wonderful. What did you make?" "Pancakes," Lily said, her smile widening. "He said Mom used to make them like that, with blueberries in the shape of a heart." Emma knelt beside her desk, the emotion in her voice carefully tempered. "That sounds very special." "I bet it reminded him of her." Lily nodded again, her expression softening. "It did. He said it felt good to remember." Throughout the morning, Emma noticed how Lily's newfound confidence extended beyond their conversations. She participated eagerly in class discussions, volunteered to read aloud, and even helped a classmate with a difficult math problem. It was as though the connection she'd begun rebuilding with James had unlocked a part of her that had been hidden away. But Emma's cautious optimism wavered during lunch when she received a call from Andrew Calder. "Emma," Andrew began, his tone urgent. "I just got off the phone with James. He asked me to watch Lily this evening, something about an emergency at work." Emma frowned. "Did he say what kind of emergency?" "No," Andrew replied, "but he sounded off, like he was trying to convince himself it was important." Emma's chest tightened. She'd seen this pattern before, James making progress, only to retreat when the emotional weight became too much. "I'll talk to him," she said firmly. "We can't let him backtrack now." After school, Emma waited by the entrance, watching as parents arrived to collect their children. When James's familiar car pulled up, she intercepted him before Lily could get in. "Mr. Westwood," she said, her voice steady but firm. "Do you have a moment?" James glanced at her, his expression guarded. "I'm in a bit of a rush." "This won't take long," Emma assured him. "It's about Lily." James hesitated, then stepped out of the car. Emma led him to a quiet corner near the playground, her tone softening as she spoke. "Lily's been doing so well lately," she began. "She came to school today, glowing about the breakfast you made together. It clearly meant a lot to her. James's posture relaxed slightly, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. She liked the pancakes. She loved them, Emma said. And that connection you're building, it's exactly what she needs. But she also needs consistency, James. When you cancel plans or disappear, it shakes her sense of security. James's face tightened. I have responsibilities, Miss Hart. I can't just... I know you do, Emma interrupted gently. But she's your most important one. And she's not asking for perfection, just your presence. James exhaled sharply, his frustration evident. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, Emma admitted, but it's worth it. And every step you take makes a difference. James was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the ground. Finally, he nodded. You're right. I'll rearrange things. Relief washed over Emma, though she kept her expression calm. Thank you, for her sake. That evening, as Emma graded papers in her quiet home, her phone buzzed with a message from James. Thank you for pushing me today. I stayed home with Lily and we talked more about Emily. It was hard, but it felt right. Emma smiled, her heart heavy with gratitude and hope. She replied simply, You're doing the right thing. The next morning, Lily arrived at school with the same brightness as the day before. During art class, she created a drawing of her family, a smiling James, herself, and Emily, their hands joined beneath a tree. When she showed it to Emma, the teacher felt a lump rise in her throat. Miss Hart, Lily said softly, do you think Mom would be proud of me? Emma knelt to meet her gaze, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to spill over. Lily, she would be so proud of how strong and kind and brave you are. Lily beamed, holding the drawing close to her chest. Uncle James said the same thing. As Emma watched her return to her desk, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead for James and Lily would be long, but they were walking it together, and for the first time, it felt like they were truly moving toward a place of healing. A biting chill swept through the small town as December deepened, bringing with it the promise of the year's first snowstorm. At Lincoln Elementary, the staff prepared for the holiday break, their thoughts drifting between lesson plans and family gatherings. But for Emma Hart, there was no pause in her focus. The fragile progress James and Lily Westwood had made was her priority, and she knew they stood at a critical juncture. It was during a midweek staff meeting that Principal Wilkins approached Emma with an idea. Miss Hart, he said, his tone measured, I've been impressed by your dedication to Lily and her family. I wonder if you'd consider something, a class presentation for the holidays. It could be a way for the children to reflect on the year and express gratitude. Emma nodded thoughtfully. I think that's a wonderful idea. It could be especially meaningful for Lily. Wilkins smiled. I had a feeling you'd agree. Let's make it happen. Emma introduced the idea to her students the next day. They would create a short performance based on the theme of family, with each child contributing their own part, whether through art, writing, or storytelling. As expected, Lily approached the project with quiet enthusiasm. She spent hours after school working on her piece, a heartfelt letter addressed to her mother. Emma watched as the girl poured herself into the words, her small hands steady despite the weight of her emotions. When Lily shared her draft with Emma, the teacher was struck by the raw beauty of the letter. Dear Mom, I miss you every day. Uncle James misses you too, even though he doesn't say it a lot, but I think you'd be proud of us. We're trying really hard to be okay, and sometimes it feels like we are. I hope you know how much we love you. Love. Lily Emma blinked back tears as she read, Lily, this is beautiful. Would you like to read it during the presentation? Lily hesitated, then nodded. "Do you think Uncle James would like it?" "I think he'd love it," Emma said softly. The day of the presentation arrived with a flurry of snow and a buzz of excitement in the school auditorium. Parents and guardians filled the rows of seats, their chatter mingling with the nervous whispers of children backstage. Emma moved among her students, offering words of encouragement and adjusting costumes. When James arrived, Emma noticed immediately. He stood at the back, his tall frame commanding yet unassuming, scanning the room until his eyes landed on Lily. He gave her a small wave, and Lily's face lit up in response. The performance began with a group of students singing a cheerful holiday song, their voices filling the space with warmth. Next came a series of short skits and poetry readings, each child sharing their unique perspective on family and gratitude. When it was Lily's turn, she walked to the microphone clutching her letter, her steps tentative but purposeful. The room fell silent as she unfolded the paper, her small voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Dear Mom," she began, her words clear and poignant. As she read, her voice grew stronger, the emotions behind each word resonating deeply with the audience. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. James, seated near the back, looked visibly moved. His normally composed demeanor cracked, and for a brief moment, Emma saw the full depth of his love and grief. After the presentation, the children gathered with their families in the decorated gymnasium, sharing cookies and warm drinks. Lily led James to the corner where her letter was displayed alongside her classmates' work. She pointed to it proudly, her smile bright and unguarded. "Uncle James, did you like it?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. James knelt beside her, his expression softening. "I loved it, Lily. Your mom would be so proud of you." Lily threw her arms around him, and for the first time, James hugged her back without hesitation. It was a moment of unspoken healing, a bridge built from shared pain and newfound connection. As the evening wound down, Emma found herself alone with James for a moment. He approached her, his usual guardedness replaced by quiet gratitude. "Miss Hart," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion. "Thank you for everything. I don't think we'd be here without you." Emma smiled, her own eyes misting. "You and Lily did the hard work, James. I just gave you a little push." James nodded, his gaze drifting to where Lily was laughing with her classmates. "She's everything. I see that now." "And she sees that you're trying," Emma said gently. "That's all she's ever wanted." As Emma left the school that night, the first snowflakes of the storm began to fall, blanketing the town in a quiet, pristine white. She walked to her car with a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the bonds between James and Lily had grown stronger, strong enough, she hoped, to weather whatever storms lay ahead. For the first time in months, Emma felt at peace. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were healing, and that, she knew, was the greatest gift of all. The winter storm arrived overnight, blanketing the small town in a thick layer of snow. Streets were hushed and hidden beneath pristine drifts, while rooftops shimmered under the muted light of the overcast sky. At Lincoln Elementary, the first morning back after the holiday presentation carried a sense of calm reflection, as though the entire school shared a collective exhale. Emma Hart sat at her desk, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea. She thought of the previous evening and Lily's poignant letter, the way it had touched everyone in the room, especially James. It had been a transformative moment for both of them, and Emma felt a quiet hope that it marked the start of something lasting. Her musings were interrupted by the soft knock of Andrew Calder at her door. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, stepping inside with his own steaming cup. Emma smiled. "Of course. Come in." Andrew sat across from her, his expression thoughtful. "Last night was something, wasn't it? Lily's letter. It was hard to keep it together. Emma nodded, her gaze distant. It was beautiful. And the way James responded, it felt like he finally let his guard down, even if just for a moment. Andrew leaned back, his tone measured. Do you think it'll stick, or is this just another fleeting step forward? Emma sighed. I think it's both. Healing isn't a straight line, but I feel like James and Lily turned a corner last night. Now it's about keeping the momentum. Andrew nodded. I saw him talk to Catherine before he left. It looked amicable. Emma tilted her head. Catherine Barnes, Emily's colleague. Yes, Andrew confirmed. She's been quietly keeping tabs on James and Lily. She told me she's encouraged by how far they've come. That's good to hear, Emma said, feeling a flicker of relief. They'll need all the support they can get. Later that morning, Lily arrived at school with an energy that radiated across the classroom. She greeted Emma with a hug, a rare and heartwarming gesture that made the teacher smile. Miss Hart, guess what? Lily said, her voice bright. Uncle James said he wants to make pancakes again this weekend. He said, I can even pick the shape this time. Emma crouched to meet Lily's gaze, her tone light and teasing. What shape are you going to choose? Maybe a star, Lily said, grinning, or a snowman. I think those are excellent choices, Emma replied warmly, and it sounds like you two are having a lot of fun together. Lily nodded, her expression softening. We are. It feels different, like he's not so far away anymore. Emma's heart swelled at the words. That's because you're both working so hard to understand each other. I'm so proud of you, Lily. Lily beamed, her confidence shining through. Thank you, Miss Hart. I couldn't have done it without you. Throughout the day, Emma kept a watchful eye on Lily, marveling at the girl's transformation. She participated eagerly in every activity, her quiet resilience giving way to a newfound sense of belonging. At lunch, she sat with a group of classmates, laughing and chatting as though the weight of the past had finally begun to lift. But as the day wore on, Emma noticed a subtle shift. Lily grew quieter during the afternoon lessons, her gaze drifting out the window to the snow-covered playground. During dismissal, she lingered by her desk, her backpack still unopened. Lily, Emma said gently, approaching her, is everything okay? Lily hesitated, then nodded. I'm just thinking. About what? Emma asked, her voice soft. Lily looked down at her hands. About Mom. Last night, I felt like she was watching us, like she knew we were trying to be okay. Emma knelt beside her, the tenderness in her tone unwavering. I think she'd be so proud of you, Lily. And of your uncle, too. She loved you both so much. And I know she'd want you to keep finding joy together. Lily smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. I think she'd like that we're making pancakes. I think she'd love it, Emma agreed. And she'd love the star or snowman shapes too. That evening, as Emma left the school, she noticed James's car parked outside. He was waiting for Lily, his expression calm as he waved her over. Lily ran to him, her laughter bright against the fading light. Before they drove off, James rolled down the window, his gaze meeting Emma's. Miss Hart, he said, his voice steady. I just wanted to say thank you. For everything. Emma smiled, her breath visible in the crisp air. You're doing the hard work, James. Lily's lucky to have you. James hesitated, then nodded. We're lucky to have you. As they pulled away, Emma watched them go, her heart full. The journey ahead would undoubtedly hold more challenges, but for now, there was a sense of peace, a quiet assurance that the bonds between James and Lily had grown strong enough to endure. And for Emma, that was enough. The week after the holiday performance brought a quiet lull to the bustling halls of Lincoln Elementary. Snow continued to pile against windowsills, muffling the sounds of the outside world and casting a soft glow across the school grounds. Inside her classroom, Emma Hart found herself reflecting on the past few months, the unexpected journey that had brought her closer to Lily Bennett and her uncle, James Westwood. Lily was thriving in ways Emma had dared to hope for but hadn't fully expected. Her newfound confidence shone brightly in the classroom. She volunteered answers with enthusiasm, laughed freely with her friends, and even took pride in helping younger students during recess. But what struck Emma most was the joy Lily seemed to carry with her now, a stark contrast to the shy, uncertain girl who had first caught Emma's attention. One morning, as the students filed into the classroom, Lily approached Emma's desk holding a small, wrapped package. "Miss Hart," Lily said shyly, setting the gift down. "This is for you." Emma smiled warmly, her heart swelling. "Thank you, Lily. Can I open it now?" Lily nodded eagerly. Emma carefully unwrapped the paper to reveal a framed drawing of a tree. Its branches were adorned with names written in Lily's neat handwriting: Mom, Uncle James, Miss Hart, Mr. Calder. Beneath the tree, in smaller letters, were the words, "My family." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Lily, her voice soft with emotion. "This is the most beautiful gift I've ever received. Thank you, Lily." Lily grinned, her cheeks flushing with pride. "I wanted you to have it because you're part of my family too." Emma pulled Lily into a gentle hug, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "That means the world to me, Lily. And I'll always be here for you." Later that day, during lunch, Emma sat with Andrew Calder in the staff room. She showed him the drawing, her smile brimming with pride and emotion. "She's come so far," Emma said, setting the frame on the table. "It's incredible to think about where she was just a few months ago." Andrew nodded, his expression thoughtful. "And James, how's he doing?" Emma considered the question carefully. "He's trying. You can see it in the little things, how he talks to her, the way he shows up now. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be." Andrew leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. "You've done something remarkable, Emma. You've given them a chance to find each other." Emma shook her head, though her smile remained. "They did the hard work. I just pointed them in the right direction." The next day, Emma stayed late after school to work on lesson plans. The building was quiet, the usual hum of activity replaced by the faint sound of the janitor's mop swishing down the hallway. As she organized her materials, her phone buzzed with a message. "Miss Hart, I thought you'd like to know, we made the pancakes. Lily chose a snowman shape, and she insisted on taking a picture to show you. Thank you for everything." James. Emma smiled as she opened the attached photo. It showed Lily grinning beside a plate of snowman-shaped pancakes, her joy palpable even through the screen. Emma replied simply, "That's wonderful to hear. She looks so happy. You're doing an amazing job, James." By Friday, the school was abuzz with preparations for the upcoming winter break. Students were giddy with anticipation, their conversations filled with plans for sledding, hot cocoa, and snowball fights. Emma used the time to reflect with her class, encouraging each student to share something they were grateful for. When it was Lily's turn, she stood confidently, her voice steady as she spoke. "I'm grateful for my uncle, for trying really hard to make things better, and I'm grateful for my teacher, Miss Hart, for helping us when we needed it most." The room fell quiet as her words hung in the air, the sincerity in her voice touching everyone present. Emma felt a swell of pride and humility, her connection to Lily deeper than she had ever imagined. That evening, Emma left the school feeling an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. As she walked to her car, the snowflakes falling gently around her, she thought of Lily and James, how far they had come, and how much they had overcome together. Their journey wasn't over, but it was clear they were on a path toward healing. Emma paused before getting into her car, taking a moment to look up at the sky. The stars were faint but steady, their light breaking through the winter clouds. She thought of the tree in Lily's drawing, its branches intertwined with names that represented love, support, and family. It was a reminder that even in the darkest seasons, new growth was possible. And for Emma, that simple truth was more than enough. The crisp chill of winter break settled over Lincoln Elementary as the students left for their holiday celebrations. Emma Hart found herself walking the quiet halls of the school, reflecting on the journey that had brought Lily Bennett and James Westwood to a place of hope. Though the building was empty now, echoes of the children's laughter and the holiday performance lingered, filling the space with warmth. Emma spent her first days of break catching up on her reading, baking cookies to share with her neighbors, and reflecting on the many ways her life had changed since Lily had entered her classroom. The framed drawing of the tree sat on her mantel, a constant reminder of the bonds they had forged and the resilience Lily and James had shown. It was on the third day of break when Emma received an unexpected message from James. It was short and to the point, but the gratitude behind it was unmistakable. "Miss Hart, we've decided to spend Christmas Eve making dinner together. Lily's idea. She wanted me to let you know that you're invited to join us if you're free. Thank you for everything." Emma smiled as she read the message, touched by the invitation. She replied quickly, her words genuine. "Thank you, James. I'd be honored to join you and Lily. What time should I come?" His reply came quickly, 6 o'clock. On Christmas Eve, Emma bundled up against the biting cold and made her way to James's house. The snow on the ground sparkled beneath the soft glow of the streetlights, and the faint sound of carolers echoed from somewhere in the distance. Emma carried a small tin of homemade cookies, her heart warmed by the thought of spending the evening with Lily and James. When she arrived, Lily opened the door, her face lighting up with excitement. "Miss Hart, you came!" Emma knelt to hug her, the warmth of the house a welcome contrast to the chill outside. "Of course I did. I wouldn't miss it." Inside, the house was modestly decorated but cozy. A small tree stood in the corner of the living room, adorned with handmade ornaments and twinkling lights. The scent of roasted vegetables and cinnamon filled the air, and Emma was struck by how much the atmosphere reflected the progress James and Lily had made together. James appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Miss Hart," he greeted, his tone calm but sincere. "Thank you for coming." Emma smiled. "Thank you for inviting me. It smells amazing in here." "That's all Lily," James said with a faint grin. "She's taken over the kitchen." Lily giggled. "Uncle James is just my helper." The evening unfolded with warmth and laughter. Lily proudly showed Emma the dishes she had helped prepare, from the perfectly roasted chicken to the apple pie cooling on the counter. They sat together at the table, sharing stories and jokes, and Emma was struck by the ease with which James and Lily interacted now. The tension and uncertainty that had once marked their relationship were replaced by a quiet understanding and genuine affection. After dinner, they gathered in the living room, where Lily presented Emma with a small gift, a hand-painted ornament shaped like a snowman. "I made it for you," Lily said, her eyes shining, "so you can always remember our pancakes." Emma laughed, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Lily. I'll treasure it." As the evening wound down, James walked Emma to the door. The two stood for a moment in the crisp night air, the snow falling softly around them. "Miss Hart," James began, his voice steady, "I don't think I can ever thank you enough for what you've done for us." Emma shook her head. "James, you've done so much for Lily and for yourself. I just gave you a nudge in the right direction." He met her gaze, his expression unguarded for the first time. "It's more than that. You gave us hope when we didn't know how to find it. You've changed our lives." Emma felt her throat tighten with emotion. "And you've reminded me why I became a teacher. Watching Lily grow and seeing you both heal, it's been the greatest gift I could ask for." James nodded, his gratitude clear. "Thank you, Emma, for everything." As Emma walked to her car, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The bonds they had formed, the love and resilience they had rediscovered, were stronger than she could have ever imagined. For the first time, she truly believed that James and Lily would be okay, that their journey together was just beginning. And for Emma, knowing she had played a part in their transformation was enough to fill her heart with joy. The days between Christmas and New Year's carried a peaceful stillness that Emma Hart welcomed. The town was quiet, blanketed in fresh snow that muffled footsteps and brought an ethereal calm. Emma spent her evenings curled up with a book or journaling about the journey she had witnessed between Lily Bennett and James Westwood. Their growth, both individual and as a family, remained a source of deep inspiration. As the new year approached, Emma received a surprise invitation from James. The message was simple but thoughtful. "Miss Hart, we're hosting a small dinner for New Year's Eve. Lily insists you must come. She's made a plan she won't tell me about. Hope you can join us." Emma smiled as she read the message, touched once again by their thoughtfulness. Her reply was quick and genuine. "I wouldn't miss it. See you at 7. The evening arrived with a clear, star-filled sky, the air crisp with the promise of a fresh start. Emma dressed warmly and made her way to James's home, carrying a small bouquet of flowers for Lily and a bottle of sparkling cider to share. The sight of the glowing windows and the faint sound of laughter as she approached filled her with anticipation. Lily greeted her at the door, her excitement barely contained. "Miss Hart, you're here." Emma knelt to hug her, grinning. "Of course I am. Now, what's this plan you've been keeping secret?" Lily giggled, taking Emma's hand and leading her inside. "You'll see." The house was warm and inviting, with candles flickering on the mantel and soft music playing in the background. James appeared from the kitchen, his expression calm but welcoming. "Miss Hart," he said, nodding, "thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting me," Emma replied. "It smells amazing in here." "Lily insisted we cook everything together," James said with a faint smile. "She's taken the lead. She's a natural," Emma said, laughing as Lily tugged her toward the dining room. The table was set beautifully, with hand-drawn place cards that Lily had clearly worked hard on. Emma's card featured a small illustration of a tree, much like the one from her holiday gift. Dinner was a lively affair, filled with laughter and stories. Lily's confidence shone as she described her plans for the new year, from learning how to bake a cake to trying out for the school play. James listened attentively, his pride evident in the way he encouraged her dreams. As the meal wound down, Lily disappeared into the living room, returning with a small wrapped box. "This is for you, Uncle James," she said, holding the gift out with both hands. "I made it myself." James looked momentarily taken aback, but accepted the gift with care. He unwrapped it slowly, revealing a framed drawing of the three of them, James, Lily, and Emma, standing beneath a large tree. The branches were filled with tiny hearts, each one bearing a name or word: Mom, love, family, home. James stared at the drawing, his expression softening as emotion flickered across his face. "Lily, this is beautiful. Thank you." Lily beamed. "I wanted you to know that we're a family now. You, me, and all the people who've helped us." Emma felt her throat tighten as she watched the exchange. It was a moment of pure love and understanding, a culmination of months of growth and healing. As midnight approached, They gathered in the living room to watch the countdown on television. Lily nestled between James and Emma on the couch, her small hands clasped in theirs. When the clock struck 12, they cheered softly, raising their glasses of sparkling cider in a toast. "To new beginnings," James said, his voice steady and warm, "and to the people who make them possible." Lily clinked her glass against theirs, her smile bright. "To family." Emma felt tears prick her eyes as she joined the toast. "To family." After the celebration wound down, Emma prepared to leave, her heart full. At the door, James stopped her, his expression thoughtful. "Miss Hart," he began, his voice quieter now, "I know I've said it before, but I need you to understand how much you've done for us. You didn't just help Lily, you helped me see what it means to truly show up for someone." Emma placed a hand on his arm, her tone gentle. "James, you've done the work. You've found your way back to Lily, and that's the most important thing." He nodded, his gratitude evident. "You'll always be a part of this family. I hope you know that." Emma smiled, the depth of his words settling over her. "Thank you. That means more to me than I can say." As she walked to her car under the starlit sky, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The journey she had witnessed, the transformation of a fractured family into something whole, was a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the quiet strength of connection. For Emma, the new year held the promise of more stories, more lives to touch, and more hope to nurture. And as she drove away, the stars above seemed to shine just a little brighter. The months following the new year unfolded like a gentle thaw, the once harsh edges of winter giving way to soft sunlight and the promise of spring. At Lincoln Elementary, Emma Hart watched as Lily Bennett continued to blossom, her confidence and joy radiating in every interaction. James Westwood, too, became a more frequent presence in Lily's life at school, attending parent-teacher meetings, volunteering for events, and even joining the occasional classroom project. For Emma, their progress was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the quiet power of love. But she also knew that the bonds they had forged needed nurturing, especially as life's challenges continued to test them. One late afternoon in March, Emma received an envelope at the school's front office. It was addressed in James's neat handwriting, and inside was a note written on thick, cream-colored stationery. The words were simple yet profound. "Miss Hart, thank you for being our guiding light during a time of darkness. Lily and I are forever grateful for your kindness and strength. To show our appreciation, we've made a donation to the school in Emily's name. We hope it will help other children find the support and love you've given us." With deepest gratitude, James and Lily Emma felt her throat tighten as she read the letter. Tucked inside was a check for a substantial sum, enough to fund several new programs for the school. But what moved her most was the gesture itself, a tribute to Emily's memory and a sign of James's and Lily's journey toward healing. The school year ended with a flurry of celebrations. During the final assembly, Principal Wilkins announced the new programs funded by the donation, crediting the Westwood family for their generosity. The room erupted in applause, and Emma caught James's eye from across the room. He nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of the shared journey they had undertaken. After the assembly, Lily ran to Emma with her yearbook in hand. "Miss Hart, will you sign it?" Emma took the book and turned to the back, where Lily had reserved a special page. She wrote carefully, her words reflecting the depth of her feelings. "Dear Lily, watching you grow has been one of the greatest joys of my life. You are strong, kind, and brave, and I know you will continue to shine brightly in everything you do. Always remember how much you are loved." "With all my heart." Miss Hart. Lily hugged her tightly, her small arms conveying a gratitude words could not. The summer brought new beginnings for everyone. James and Lily spent the warmer months traveling to places Emily had once dreamed of visiting. taking photos and creating memories that honored her legacy. They sent Emma postcards from each stop, filled with Lily's handwriting and cheerful updates. In late August, Emma received a final postcard. It showed a picture of a tree, its branches heavy with blossoms. On the back, Lily had written, "Dear Miss Hart, we saw this tree, and it reminded us of the one I drew for you. Uncle James says it's a sign of how we've grown together. Thank you for helping us find our way. Love." Lily. Emma placed the postcard on her mantle beside Lily's drawing, her heart full. The new school year began with fresh faces and new challenges, but Emma carried the lessons of the past year with her. She saw each student as a story waiting to unfold, each one a chance to make a difference. And though her days were busy, she never forgot the family that had changed her life as much as she had changed theirs. One crisp autumn morning, as Emma prepared her classroom, a familiar voice called out from the doorway. "Miss Hart." She turned to see James and Lily standing there, their smiles bright against the backdrop of the morning light. Lily held a small gift bag, her excitement barely contained. "We wanted to stop by," James said, his tone warm. Lily insisted. Lily stepped forward, handing Emma the bag. Inside was a small plaque with an inscription that read, "For Miss Hart, with love and gratitude, from James and Lily Westwood." Emma felt tears prick her eyes as she looked at them. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This means so much to me." James nodded, his expression steady. "You mean so much to us." Lily threw her arms around Emma, her hug fierce and filled with love. "We wouldn't be here without you, Miss Hart." Emma held her close, her heart overflowing. "And I wouldn't be the person I am without you too." As they left, Emma placed the plaque on her desk, its presence a reminder of the lives they had changed together. Outside, the autumn leaves danced in the breeze, their vibrant colors a symbol of transformation and hope. For Emma, James, and Lily, the journey they had walked together was more than a story of healing. It was a testament to the power of connection, the strength of the human spirit, and the enduring beauty of love. It was a journey that would stay with them forever, etched into their hearts like the branches of a tree reaching toward the sky. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.